Before we begin, thank you very much to Toastman30K for pitching in over on Ko-fi. Thank you very much for the contribution. Very appreciated. Thank you very, very much. Just that quick little reminder that the Ko-fi does help me directly with far smaller fee than Patreon. So thank you very much for using it. The Patreon goal is still nice though. If you want to really support the channel, either way. And if not, the free way to just hit subscribe, hit like, that stuff helps a lot too. So it is the first of the month. It is time once again for our routine of Q&A video, and this one's got like 169 comments on it, so we're gonna be here for a while. So I do appreciate you sticking through for the long videos. It does mean a lot to me. So just to have a quick little rundown, because we have to do this every single time, because this might be someone's first time watching a Q&A. If you want a question answered, then please leave it in the comment section below, but please do it according to the rules. The rules are 1 question per person. Do not multi-post. If I do see that, I will start deleting your posts. Quick questions only. Do not start asking me for entire rosters or coming up with entire storylines. Just like quick bangers so we can get in and out as fast as possible. These videos are long enough as it is. Please keep it YouTube TOS friendly, because I don't want to lose my channel over your question. Ban topics, things like usual stuff like politics, gun Megatron, Gundam, just because I have the same answers on all of them. And for the most part, just be nice about the comments. That's all. That's all. Also, if you're just making a comment on the video, please mark it as a comment so I'm not accidentally reading something that isn't a question. Like I said, we gotta go through as quick as possible here, which means we are going to be starting off here with Princess Matrix with the most recent question. And what is a completely unexpected crossover that could actually work for the collab figures? The thing is, completely unexpected could be literally anything. Like they could partner with Coca-Cola to do a follow-up to those like 80s transforming Coke can toys. That's actually a thing. They did that, and they could do it again. They could do it with the Happy Meals and actually have like full transformer engineered changeables like they did in the 90s, like those little transforming little food toys. They could do that too. Like there's a lot. There's a lot they could do. Just stuff that's out of the blue, just like crazy stuff. Like they've already done things like Top Gun, you know, if I'm coming up with like other vehicle franchises. Honestly, as long as the toy is well done, I think they can make just about anything work at this point. I think they could make just about anything work at this point. I appreciate you discussing the issues of Transformer release dates, because I had to cancel multiple pre-orders and worried that I won't have another chance to get those figures because they are so in demand. Have you ever missed out on a figure because of this? So with Transformers, I generally budget well enough that I actually can make sure that I get everything that I'm after. I've got the new Star Optimus on the, like right on the bed next to me. I think you can kind of like, yeah, you can see him a little bit here. He's in base mode, or else I would hold him up for the camera. But the only one I can remember offhand, so there was another line called Arch Core, and they did this incredibly cool looking semi-truck transforming toy. Looked really, really cool in both modes, and had it pre-ordered, and then just for whatever reason, yeah, like times get tough, bills came in, Sarah. I don't remember the reason, but I had to cancel the pre-order thinking, you know, it's a unknown brand, you know, it's a brand new brand. Surely this is going to hang around long enough for me to come back to. It vanished. Sold out. They did a retool and a repaint. I didn't like it as well, but I went through the exact same thing. Pre-ordered, had to cancel, sold out. Never saw it again. And now it might happen the exact same way, because ArchCore is doing what I think is the coolest thing in the world ever, which is transforming castles that turn into knights, or like castles and dragons that combine and transform together. It looks sick. And I'm probably not going to be able to afford them. They are crazy expensive. But no, yeah, it's a little bit rare, but yeah, like that's done. That's done. That's where I am. Since Capcom doesn't seem to want to make any new Mega Man titles, are there any games you found that scratch that particular itch? There's been a few. There's been a few. I often say that Ratchet and Clank feels like what a modern 3D Mega Man game should be. And we just did, hey, over on Astral Agent Magnetar, over on Twitch, we just played through all of Rift Apart, and I love that game. I fell in love with that game. It feels amazing. And yeah, if there's a Mega Man game that ran like that, absolutely I would be down. Beyond that, there's a few others. I think it's Axiom Verge. Like, so I have my my obsession over Metroidvania games. So I need to let me run around jumping and shooting. Like, that kind of scratches a Mega Man itch as well. Indie games like 20XX as well, because those are intentionally designed to feel like Mega Man. There's other ways. There's also like tons of fan games in the production for, like, every time I scroll through TikTok, someone's got like a fan Mega Man X game or something that I want to check out. So yeah, there's other ways of scratching that itch. Also, a tier list of Transformer human allies. It's extensive, and I'd have to read up on a few of them, but I have thought of that more than once. That's got to be done at some point. Let's see. With Michael Bay returning to direct the next Transformers movie, I've always wanted this in my head. Do you think if the 2007 Transformers movie never came out, do you think the franchise would still be popular today? Honestly, probably not, because the audience does kind of eventually get exhausted. I think if it wasn't for the Bayverse, we would probably see more reinvention of the line than we ended up seeing. I think the 07 movie not only brought new aesthetics for the people who wanted something new, it brought a lot of the nostalgia that raised demand for the classic designs. So it played hand in hand. If those movies didn't happen, I think you'd see a much stronger run of cartoons. Like, granted, that period after Cybertron, we get animated and then Prime, that's a really strong run. But I feel like the urge to reinvent and keep the line fresh would have been going for a lot longer. But I don't think it ever would have reached like full mainstream popularity like it did. I think it would have remained kind of where it was during the Unicron trilogy, where, it's a mainstay of the toy aisle, but it's not like overly popular or anything. It just does well enough to hang in there. Do you think it's possible for obscure characters not known by the public, like Gigan and Space Godzilla, for Godzilla X Kong Supernova to be made household names? Like what James Gunn did with Guardians of the Galaxy? Absolutely, absolutely. Like, those movies are really popular, and they're dumb popcorn flicks, but I like them. I do like those movies myself. Yeah, if Gigan or Space Godzilla show up in those movies, yeah, of course they're going to be a lot better known. Of course they're going to be much better, known characters to the general public. It depends on how well they're received as monsters. You got to make them stand out in some way. You got to make them seem really, really cool. So, because I feel like the Scar King doesn't really stand out a lot in memory. People remember Pink Godzilla though. Pink Godzilla stands out. See, I know you like indie YouTube shows, so I was wondering if you like or watch object shows like Inanimate Insanity or Battle for Dream Island Power to a show. I'll just go ahead and say no. I object shows. I honestly have never even heard that phrase. So I think you're talking to a completely different side of YouTube than I'm familiar with here. My taste is in the indie animation department. This sounds completely different. The Scheduled Conflict fan asks, I always appreciate you showing up and asking the D&D stuff. Sorry if this counts as 2 questions, but with the campaign appearing to be rapidly coming to an end, how many episodes do you think will be left before the campaign concludes, and how long of a break will it be between campaigns? I'm really passionate fan of the show, and I love watching you guys from week to week. Honestly, it does feel like we are approaching... hang on. It does feel like we're approaching the end very quickly, which is not my preference, because I'm not done playing Tora. Like, I still want to keep playing Tora. And there's always the possibility that the roster changes, and I don't really want to, like, I kind of want to keep playing, with these people. So you don't know. You don't know. I don't know how long of a break it's going to be. That's completely up to Gob, his work schedule, how much it takes for him to start writing out campaign 2. I really don't even know how many episodes we've got left. Gob typically likes to run like one epilogue episode, so yeah, if we're charging through, I don't know, it feels like we got like maybe like 6 left in us. We might not even make it to episode 100 here, but we'll see. I genuinely don't know. What are your thoughts on panel lining Transformers? Started doing some of my Siege Earthrise figures. I love how much extra detail pops. On Siege and Earthrise figures, I think it would look really good because it will add to the gritty look that's already there in the paint. And those have all the tech greeble that would make them look really nice panel line. For the most part, I don't think most Transformers need it. I don't like the panel lines coming out because they're not man-made construction things that were like riveted together. They are living robots, so I don't think they should have like panel lines that are like extremely visible. That's just my personal preference, though. Should George Clooney appear in the live-action TF film directed by Josh Cooley? You really just want Cooley and Clooney to be in the same project, don't you? I don't see George Clooney as a Transformer guy. Let's leave him out. Is there a Transformer character you really like because of a personal headcanon story you made for them? Honestly, I don't really headcanon much. Honestly, my brain likes to come up with stories, but it likes to come up with original stories for original characters. It doesn't like take a character and go, this is what I want the character to do. Like, my brain just doesn't work like that. So unfortunately, I don't have an answer for you. So like, there really isn't a character like that for me. Would you ever consider commissioning artwork from fans or fan art in person? I mean, I have commissioned artwork of my D&D characters before. And that was at convention, so that was in person technically. So I guess that counts. Fan art isn't commissioned though, so that doesn't quite work the same way. It feels weird to say like, hey, I'd like to, hey, are you my fan? I will pay you to art me. No, I don't think it's fan art unless it like comes as in the form of a gift. But yeah, I have done a little bit of commission work, and obviously for like Magnetar, I have done a ton of commissions of that character too. Let's see, but do you think Michael Bay made his movies worse and worse with each entry on purpose, so Paramount would finally stop asking him to make more? Probably not. Probably not, because he himself would not want to hurt his own reputation as a director, because yeah, they'll get Paramount to fire him, but it will also get every other major motion picture company to not hire him. So yeah, no, I don't think he purposely like tanked the movies. I just think the writers had a harder and harder time figuring out what to do with that franchise. See, with Bruticus coming up for the 2026 combiner, no sign of Defensor yet. Would you want Hasbro to finish off the core 5 G1 combiners, or take a break and do other commander-worthy characters? So I kind of explained this before in another video. Because the budgets for these toys change year by year, because we are always like seeing the toys shrink or hollow out, I really feel like they need to stick to this combiner thing for as long as they can get away with, just because I really want to see all of them come out and be equivalent of each other. You know, I don't want them to like, I would love for them to just sit, just put combiners aside for a year, do like a Cybertron Optimus Prime, and then come back to do like Defensor or Computron or something like that, just to give it a little bit of variety. But by then, budgets might have changed so much that skeletal transformation scheme they've come up with for the combiners might not be viable anymore. It might not be affordable to do. It might have gotten too expensive. So I think, for me, I think I would rather them just get all the combiners out of the way right now, while they can still get away with doing it, and then come back to it. What we need is 2 commanders a year. That's what we need. One can be a combiner, one can be for something else. Which we know that's kind of happening. Studio Series is getting a Titan, according to like the rumor mill and the listings. And we're getting 2 commanders for Generations. And that's refreshing. That will help a lot. Coming here for your ranking of the currently released commander figures. Why haven't you reviewed Legacy Armada Optimus Prime? Because to be honest with you, I really don't like reviewing larger figures. They're a lot harder to frame. They're a lot harder to get the camera to cooperate with. They're harder to stage, because I only have a certain amount of space that I can work with. I also, because like if it's a large figure, the camera has to come way back from where the toy is sitting, which means usually I have to be closer to the toy than the camera, which is going to mean I can't see what's happening from the viewfinder. So if the focus goes out of whack, or if like I'm out of frame, I can't tell. So there's a lot of annoyances that come with reviewing a larger toy that I'd rather just avoid if I could get away with it. So yeah, like Commander like skirts the edge of like, this is just a little bit too big. I don't really like to go larger than Leader these days. Do you have a particular favorite Transformers figure head sculpt? That's really specific. Like head design, yeah. Like Cybertron Sideways, I think looks incredibly cool and unique, even to this day. Like there's like your only equivalent is like Prime Soundwave. But if I'm going, I can't really think of a Transformer in particular where I looked at their head and went, wow, that's a really nice head on him. I don't know, maybe I don't pay enough attention to little details. I don't know, like, yeah, I'm trying to think of if there's anything of like just like a particular head design that I like. I like weird ones. Like I always liked Wheeljack's head design, and the error that ended up being, because like the original Diaclone toy, like because of the way it works, like it mistook what the cartoon took as his mouth was actually his eyes, his visor. So he ends up, Wheeljack, the way we know him, is actually an accident. But I like his head sculpt. Like Wheeljack's always got a really fun head sculpt. Which Predacons do you consider your favorite and least favorite? Beast Wars, Beast Machines, RID 2001. I mean, if we're talking toy-wise, it's probably going to be Retrax, obviously. Like, I did a whole Plastic Addict episode on that one. For favorite Predacon, that's Transmetal Megatron. I love that design. I love that color scheme, and like I think that's the best look that Megatron had. Because he looks powerful. He doesn't have, like a lizard stuck to his arm permanently. I really like that look. And toy-wise, it's my favorite from Beast Wars. Did you get what you wanted for the Power Rangers auction, and what was it? Okay, hang on a second. Okay. See, I'm getting names mixed here. You get what you wanted for the Power Ranger auction, what was it? So what I wanted was Flit from Jungle Fury, because it's the same prop as Bay from Geki Ranger, and I really, really liked Bay from Geki Ranger. I wanted it because I liked that it represented the entire character in something that was small enough to just like sit on a shelf or a desk, like that size, It wasn't like a gigantic suit that I would need to buy a mannequin for, or a helmet that needed like a big old shelf space. No, it was nice, it was compact, it was the entire character, and it's a character I really liked. So like I would have loved to have had that one. So that's the one I wanted. I think it sold for like over $2,000. It's like nothing I could come close to. Let's see. What non-combiner subgroup would make the best combiner? I saw a pretty sweet third-party Throttlebot combiner, but a giant Insecticon would be cool. You have a very inventive mind. You should be proud of everything you've accomplished. Aw, thank you. Thank you. I do appreciate that. So I've seen that third-party Throttlebot combiner. I do think that looks really, really good. Now, the Insecticon combiner would be neat, but you would have to design them to be like a very specific 3-part combiner, where like you'd have to invent kickback that could just become the lower legs, so like gigantic bug legs, which is doable. You'd probably have Shrapnel as the torso with his pincer, with his like with the pincers like as the shoulder pieces, and then split Bombshell in half and use his round shape to make the arms that look good. It's a much more Power Ranger-esque combination, but like you'd have to get inventive with just 3 of them, unless you want to include the deluxe Insecticons, which then you're dealing with a 7-part combiner, and 3 of which have matching colors, 4 of which don't. So that does get a little bit trickier. That one is that's gonna be, it might be a little bit harder to make that one a little a complete unit that looks good. But Insecticons wouldn't be bad. I do like the Throttlebot idea though, because I think the Throttlebots desperately need something to make them stand out more. Favorite insignia display methods: sticker, tampograph, rub sign, spark crystal. I actually really like the spark crystals. I really did. I thought that was a really neat way of having the faction symbol displayed. I think overall, though, I do prefer a tampograph. I don't want it to wear out like a sticker does. Tampographs can scratch, but stickers wear off and get rough around the edges and ugly so easily. So, yeah, I would absolutely go with the tampograph on that one. Let's see. If I recall correctly, you mentioned you sell off the figures from your collection every now and then, so I've got a question related to that. When do you think comes the right time to let go of a figure in general? It's very subjective. I'm so curious about your perspective. For me, it's just I hit a point where I look at a toy or think about a toy and go, I don't really enjoy owning it anymore. And that could be because something else has replaced it in the collection, that something else is on display instead now. In some situations, it's like, I bought this toy, I enjoyed it when I first opened it, but I'm not really doing anything with it anymore. For me, I always say, like, if you're on the fence about something, pack it away, put it, like pack it away in a bin or something, or in a box, shove it under the bed, put it in a closet, somewhere where you can't see it or be reminded of it. If a month or 2 goes by and you haven't even thought about it or missed it, probably time to let it go. And honestly, there's a lot of toys where I have gotten to that point. I've got so many toys binned away now. Like, I really do need to do like just one big collection purge sometime this calendar year. I need to do some big purge of the collection. But that's a lot of time to sort and organize that. And as I've explained many times, time is a very, very precious commodity for me right now. Let's see. What's the difference between cassette bots, micromasters, and minicons? So, pretty much what it says on the tin. Minicons would be small transformers that link onto larger transformers. Micromasters would be their own independent transformers, just small. And cassette bots are ones that turn into cassettes. So I know Hasbro likes to mix things around. Every now and then a line will come out that refers to like Ravage or Laserbeak as a minicon or even a micromaster, depending on the series. And that's mostly just so they keep trademarks alive. Because there is no, like, they don't officially call them cassette bots because they know that modern kids have no idea what a cassette is. So yeah, the difference is pretty much what it says on the tin. They're all they're all little transformers, but they all have like different functions or purposes, as explained. Last time I asked who would win between Simmons, Fowler, and Schroeder, and you said Fowler. Now, who do you think would win? Fowler, Lennox, or Dutch? I'm mm, I'm gonna be honest here. I can't remember Dutch. I can't remember Dutch. Hang on. Hang on. We have a TF wiki for this. Let's see. Okay, we were thinking the. Hang on. That's. Oh, never mind. Oh, him from Dark of the Moon. Out of those, I still think it would be. Honestly, out of those, it might actually be Lennox, and not because like I still think Fowler's the most experienced and skilled of those three, but honestly, Lennox has an age advantage because Fowler's like a little more of an older agent, so I'd probably go Lennox on that one. See, I struggle on what to say outside of I love your stuff. Keep doing a great job. I want to say something more, but I don't know what. Love you. Love your videos. Always a treat every day. Love Magnetar. Hope the toy store is treating you well and hope you are blessed with more bot shots than you know what to do with. See? You didn't know what to say, but you said plenty. And it means the world to me. Thank you very much for all of that. Like, I'm glad you enjoy what I do. I'm glad anyone enjoys this dog and pony show that I'm still doing after all these years. What's your least favorite Spider-Man villain? Oh man, least favorite is a little bit tricky because I tend to like a lot of them. I tend to like a lot of the Spider-Man villains. I'm trying to think of any that I'm most like, oh god, they're throwing him in again. Morloon is kind of like that. Oh god, I don't care. I'm trying to remember if there's anyone else that was really good like that. That when they showed up, they're like, really? I'm trying to think it was Rogues Gallery, like Vulture, I think. Like, because Vulture is an old guy in a flying suit. And I don't know why he was ever a threat to Spider-Man. But the favorite is Carnage. I absolutely love Carnage. You're talking to the one guy who is actually waiting for a Marvel Legends Carrion because it's the only one from the Carnage family, from Maximum Carnage, that they have not done yet. I've got the Doppelganger, I have got Shriek, I've got the Demo Goblin, thanks to a generous fan of the channel who sent me the Build-A-Figure for that. And I've got my 90s style Carnage with the pink mouth. I'm very particular about my Carnage. Black teeth, pink mouth. It's just how it goes. But yeah, no, I want to complete that collection. Yeah, I love Carnage. Like when I was a kid, Maximum Carnage were like the comic books I had to have. Like that was a mission every week when a new one came out. Had to go get it. Still have it somewhere around here. God, the box is ancient by now, but I do still have like the entire Maximum Carnage run in all 14 issues. Actually, I need to find a good place for it. I have one graded comic book in my collection. It is Spider-Man Unlimited #1, Maximum Carnage issue 1. Yeah, favorite villain. If and when you go to Japan, what would be your top 3 must-dos? There's big shops I want to hit up. Like I want to hit up like the main Mandarake there. Like go to some of these like legendary toy stores you see about. They're like 7 stories tall or whatever, and you can just get Kamen Rider belts in plastic bags. Just hanging up on pegs, like they're nothing. So I want to go to those. I think silver potato, no, or purple potato. There's super potato, super potato. The vintage game shop. That's a must do. Something I would love to do if I ever got to Japan. I would love to just travel and do like a tour around just to see all the little spots where Super Sentai and Kamen Rider keep reusing for their films, for their filming. Like the staircase is like outside of like the arena, that one fountain that they use all the time, things like that. Like I would like to go to the places that I saw my, my Toku Hero characters and be there in person. And I think that would be a really cool experience. What's Magnetar's favorite Transformer? I don't think Magnetar is a Transformer fan per se. Now, because it's me playing the character, it will leak through every now and then, or I'll talk to chat about Transformers, but generally, when I'm playing Magnetar on Twitch, I kind of no-sell a lot of Transformer stuff because I don't want to talk Transformers on Twitch. The whole reason to do a VTuber instead of just streaming as myself is I want that separation between what I do here and what I do on Twitch. We talk Transformers every single day. If we're together over on Twitch, we're there to do something different. I don't want to talk Transformers 24 hours a day. I don't want to talk Transformers every single time you see me. I want to talk about other things. I want to do other things. So, yeah, Magnetar's never going to answer that question, and I'm never going to have an answer for it because I don't want him to like Transformers. I don't want him to be a Transformer fan. I want him to do his own thing. Why is it whenever a Berserk form of Kamen Rider gets introduced, it gets nerfed as soon as the user, whether it's the main, secondary, or otherwise, gets it under control? Because they're heroes, and things like empathy and restraint are part of who they are. There's a lot of Kamen Riders out there that could blast away the entire city if they really wanted to. They don't because they're trying not to hurt anybody. They're trying not to cause any damage they don't have to do. And when it comes to Berserk forms, yeah, they're incredibly powerful when you have no morals or personal restraints to them. But, once you have a brain operating behind the wheel on those, that's when they start getting, that's where they kind of level off, So that's your general reason why. It's the Superman thing. When Superman goes berserk or loses it, it's brutal. And he could crack the planet if he wanted to. But he restrains himself because he's the good guy. If they were still that powerful, they wouldn't be all that good. If you were to help make a new Transformers cartoon, what non-Transformer show would you take the most inspiration from? See, don't go into too many specifics. Feel free to move on if you can't answer this quickly. There's part of me that's like, it's hard to say that like I would base it off of any others or like take something from another show and make it into a Transformer show, because I would want to come up with something completely its own thing. I wouldn't want to base it off of something or take inspiration from another show, especially because that risks plagiarism. But if we're going with like the overall vibe and the flow, I would probably be looking more at like Last Airbender, because that show does a really good job of balancing its filler material and its storyline material. I think it has a really good way of handling a small cast and getting to know them, but still having this larger cast that you get to know and love. I think that finds a really nice balance. So I wouldn't mind basing it closer to that. Okay, hang on. I'm trying to be comfortable as I have to sit here for hours. Can you explain what exactly a universal joint is? I've heard the term used all over the places over the years, but never heard it defined. Okay, so a universal joint, and I've got an example here. Well, yeah, I guess this kind of works as an example. So essentially, we call it a universal joint because it has a universal range of motion, a singular point on the toy where you can move it in all directions, just like you would your actual shoulder, you know? So typically that means you have a swivel in the torso of the toy attached directly to a hinge. And the other part of that hinge is what it starts forming the arm. And usually you have a cut for a bicep joint below that. Between this hinge and this swivel right next to it, you can accomplish a universal range of motion that goes all the way this way, all the way up and down, and all the diagonals in between. A ball joint can accomplish the same thing, but it's not as sturdy, and there's usually a limitation to it because it depends on how the ball joint is cut. Because the ball joint will have a cut in it so that it can go out this far. And here we have like Shockwave. I've got my little like rescued for $2 at Goodwill, by the way, and it's complete. It's actually more than complete. It came with a little gun from Mindwipe too. But you can see how his shoulder works, where like it goes all the way around, or it goes all the way around. That's the swivel, and then there's the hinge. So because these two joints are so close together, this arm can accomplish any angle I would want this arm to go at. That's a universal range of motion. And that's a universal joint. Would you want to do a video about expanding upon the Wild King series? Energy Beasts, Energy Masters, potentially figures beyond Masters. I would have to put a lot of thought into that one to come up with like what animals I would want to use, like how I want to categorize them into tribes, the appropriate characters for Energy Masters. That could be done. Like, how would I expand Wild King? That's not a terrible idea, honestly. I can workshop that. And I've done similar videos like that before, so like that's not too far out of my wheelhouse either. Why is Venom able to be trademarked for a Marvel character but not the Transformer character? I thought nobody was allowed to hold exclusive trademark domination over normal English words. Generic English words. So like, I couldn't trademark the word run because that's just so universally used. Venom is a specific thing. It's the name of a thing, so it can be trademarked. So, similar to Flash. Flash is an action thing. So like, but technically the trademark to that is the Flash. So that's kind of a bad example. The reason it can't be trademarked for the Transformer character is because Marvel owns the trademark. And even though Hasbro does Transformers and Marvel toys, they could technically use the term Venom for the toy. But that does create a little bit of confusion on the toy aisle. So they would rather not tempt Marvel or have to credit Marvel on the title on the box somewhere, because that's an extra level of like specialized printing they have to do for that figure, and they don't like doing things like that. But yeah, Venom was determined a while back in the 90s as not generic enough to be immune from trademark. So that's why Venom gets trademarked by Marvel, and that's why we can't use it for Transformers. Since you have previously discussed how you think Frieza versus the G1 style Megatron is a mismatch, what do you think of an alternative the community came up with? Cybertron Galaxy Force Megatron versus Frieza. Master Megatron is one of the stronger Megatrons thanks to scaling to Vector Prime, surviving the force of a black hole, being able to break through dimensional space, just having the Unicron armor. This all comes down to just comparison of power scales. Frieza can blow up a planet. Master Megatron cannot. He is one of the more powerful Megatrons, but he cannot do what Frieza does. He just cannot. So again, I don't think there is a Transformer character that can match the power of Frieza short of like a Unicron, you know, or maybe one of the 13, depending, or one of the alternatives. Like, you have to get freakishly strong to match what Frieza can do, especially in the death match where they let him go all the way up to Black Frieza. No shot. There's no Transformers got a shot against that. Are you a dog or cat person? I don't mind either, but I generally am a dog person. My family's always had dogs. We tried to have a cat once, and it didn't vibe with the house. And it clawed my leg once. May or may not have been because as a very young child, I thought, what would happen if I stepped on its tail? I wouldn't mind having a cat, though. I don't think I would mind that. What if there was a changer that you wave your hand over to activate? It's called a wizard driver. So it's doable. I don't know. I don't know. Cool. Do you think that instead of D16, Megatron's pre-Megatron name should have been Walther P38? No, because these companies tend to keep a hold of these trademarks and titles. You would not. Okay, so imagine someone Google searching for Walther P38 to get to your Transformer character, and a bunch of guns came up. That's a bit of a PR nightmare for Hasbro. They can't do that. They should not do that. So no, I like D16. D16's and as a nice little is a nice little throwback as well. But no, I think it's I think that name's fine. Walther's not a good idea for multiple reasons. If the Beast Wars cast was transported into the Forgotten Realms of D&D, what would Primal and Megatron turn into? Jeez, I don't know like specific universes of D&D very well, the different realms. So Forgotten Realms, you'll excuse me, I'm a little bit behind there. I'm not entirely sure what it would be. I'm not sure what D&D creatures exist in Forgotten Realms specifically. So like my answers would probably start coming up with like generic stuff. Like Megatron would turn into a dragon of some kind. Then like what would Primal turn into? Like cuz like what would Primal turn into? I'm trying to think here. Like almost like a yank or something. Like some like just some big snarling creatures. Like that's about the closest I could come to like any kind of rivalry. Yeah, that's a hard one. That's a hard one. Like there's not a real good like one-to-one match there for Primal. And that one I'd have to research a lot. Let's see, have you thought about creating a story for the Legacy trilogy similar to Beast Machine's rewrite? By the way, my favorite video on your channel. Fantastic job. Thank you. I'm actually really proud of that rewrite. I would love to see how you would use all the characters and pieces of lore. The scrap Netflix series with Straxus and Unicron would be the perfect base. I don't know enough about that pitch to really go with that, so I might have to read up on that. Let's see, the trilogy build narrative, because yeah, I have thought about that, like creating a story about like how all of this is happening. I think Legacy is a perfect place to start. And I will tell you where the origin point comes from. It comes like the first words of that fiction. And this is the only part in my head. This is the only part that my head has come up with is my name is Vector Prime and I am dying. With a shot of just him run through by his own sword. And because his chrono powers are going haywire, that's what's pulling different characters from different places in time and space into one reality for Legacy. But that's about the only thing that's really crossed my mind as far as like how I would like tell that story. Because these are characters from different universes that are all part of these toy lines. So you have to come up with something to actually explain why these worlds are merging. And that's your bigger threat. It doesn't matter that Tarn is around. What matters is the universes are collapsing. So that's the best far as I got on that one. But like, yeah, that's rattled in my brain more than once. Let's see, how would you characterize Rapido? Probably with, confidence and bravado. Like, he should be a character who feels like a leader because of his ridiculous rank. But like I feel like it should be someone who just like has like really good authority on the battlefield. Like, maybe not like the wisdom and tact of Optimus Prime, but maybe more creativity and ingenuity. Which in like in a pinch, presence, So someone who could take command in a moment's notice. I like the idea that BotCon came up with of like in emergency situations, he takes full command. But just someone with that kind of bravado and confidence in his abilities, but also doesn't really want to flex it. He prefers like the smaller assignments. He prefers leading a smaller team. He's not one, like, he can handle it, he can lead, but he doesn't feel comfortable with that responsibility. There's where Rapido lives in my brain. See, with Wild King having a Tyrannosaurus, Saber-Tooth Tiger, Elephant, Triceratops, and Pterodactyl, with the robot modes being very similar, do you think that now those toys are better suited for a Power Ranger collab than the Dinobots? Not necessarily, because yeah, all 5 of those are present, but you still need a core robot making everything up. You could technically come up with some kind of helmet piece that makes that Optimus Prime head look like the Megazord head, because Prime already has the faceplate going on, so it literally, you just put a helmet on him. That is a stretch, but it can be done. But like, really, like, for that kind of collaboration, I would really just want it to just be all Dinobots. I wouldn't want the big robot thrown in there. Like, I think you just keep it simple. And while yeah, it's cool that like all these are available, I think we could do a little bit better. I think we can do a little bit better. We all know you love Scyther, but what are your thoughts on Scizor and Cleavor? So Cleavor, I'm not too harsh about. I like the design generally. I like the idea that the evolution takes his size and turns it just into these big rock hammer, or rock axes. I don't mind Cleavor so much. Like, I think Scyther is a stronger design, but Cleavor is not bad. I really don't like Scizor. I really dislike Scizor on a personal level. You took what I thought was the coolest Pokemon design in the original game, and you just turned him into a lobster man. A lobster man with useless wings because he can no longer fly. He's no longer a flying type. He's bug steel. It's like, that feels like a downgrade, right? It feels like because he's red with these big pinchers on his hands, he looks like a lobster. And I hate that. I hate the way he looks. It doesn't look like an evolution, It doesn't look like it's supposed to be Scyther. I don't know why. I know why. I was going to say, like, I don't know why they made him red. They made him red because it was the Game Boy Color era, and they wanted to show off color tricks. So along with Scyther getting a new evolution that didn't exist in the previous game, they wanted to play with the color palette. So they wanted to show a Pokemon going from one color to another. And like, isn't that neat? Scizor's shiny looks like it actually came from Scyther, and it looks better. I still hate the claws. I still hate the lobster look, but at least green makes them look better. I will admit, Mega Scizor's incredibly stupid claw arms are kind of offset by how cool the rest of him looks. But yeah, that's kind of where I live. Like, Kleavor's fine. I don't like Scizor at all. Do you think Hasbro Takara would ever make a Transformers whose alt mode is a roller coaster work? I don't think that would. The coaster would have to be so simple. I don't even think you could put a loop on it. I don't even think a loop would work into the Transformers. No. I'm not sure that would work. I don't know how you would turn that into something that works. Like, there's just not enough mass. And like the loop around the shape of like the roller coaster would just be, that'd be so hard to engineer around. Yeah, no. Genuinely don't know. See, do you think we will get a toy crossover that Transformers has done with both the movies and comics? My Little Pony cross Transformers. I think the ship sailed on that. Now, because Hasbro owns Transformers and My Little Pony, that's always a possibility for a crossover collab toy. But the time to do it was during Friendship is Magic, because none of the pony stuff they have done since has come close to hitting that high watermark. Now, you could still break that out, you still could do like some kind of like crossover with those characters, and it would still sell because those characters still carry a lot of market value. But I feel like the timing of that has come and gone, but it's still always a possibility. Seeing the Blue Sky is on the decline, or at least from what I've seen, will you go to other social media platforms? They're still gaining users. I don't see Blue Sky as on any kind of decline. And there's a lot of companies, big companies, that are starting to make Blue Sky accounts. The only other place to jump to would be back to Twitter. And I'm sorry, I'm done with Twitter. I am absolutely done with Twitter 100%. I go back there to just check messages once in a blue moon, but I really have no interest in ever going back or using it again. The owner of the site is disgusting as a human being, and I really hate what he's pushing on the platform. And honestly, for me, it's always about like, I want the community who comes to see me and engage with me to feel safe in the space I bring them to. And I don't think Twitter is a safe place for them anymore. So I'm not asking anyone to ever go over there ever again. So no, I'm sticking to Blue Sky. I like it there. I like the vibe. I like the people there. It's like old school Twitter, which is what I like. It's what I want. So, do you think we need a new member for the 13 primes? I honestly think we need a prime for medicine and health, like Apothecus Prime. See, that's not really like a specific function of the Transformers, though, that the 13 are supposed to represent. It's not like, Amalgamus, represents like the shifters who have like multiple forms. It's not like Nexus, who represents the combiners who can join with other Transformers. I don't like, medicine and health is just a profession. Something that any Transformer with the interest in getting into can do. And we've had medics in Transformers that were both independent characters, like your Red Alerts from Armada, or G1 Ratchet, obviously. But then we've also had characters like First Aid, who is a combiner, but he still takes an interest in medicine. I don't think it's something that needs a prime, like a specific function of like what you do as a task, what your essentially what your job is as a transformer. I don't think that should be preordained by like whatever 13 you were descendant from. You know, I don't think that's necessary. If you had a monoseed from the Red Ranger Isekai, what would your privilege magic be? I only watched a little bit of that show. Like, I watched a little bit of that show and I still haven't finished it, so I don't have an answer for this one. Just because like I don't have enough context. I don't know what privilege magic is. I don't know what that refers to. I haven't gotten to a point in the series where they explain that, and if they have, it hasn't stuck in my head well enough yet. See, in the vast lineage of the primes, where do Metroid Prime, Twitch Prime, and Amazon Prime fit in? So Metroid Prime is the Prime from about 14 million years ago, when we were just when the Autobots were collaborating with a bunch of bird people, for some more for some really high tech stuff. But we had to strip her of the Matrix when she kept blowing up planets to solve her problems. Twitch Prime came shortly after that and big on broadcasting, but that eventually led to like a lot of propaganda, and just a lot of Decepticons using animated avatars to pretend they're Autobots, which led to a lot of ambushes and with things that were supposedly fan meetups. So that didn't work out. And Amazon Prime almost worked out because they were really efficient at what they did, and oh my god, I don't know how they managed to get so many supplies for the Autobots. So they did great there. Um, Unfortunately, we found out we found out that the one behind Amazon Prime was actually a Decepticon. So we had to strip the Matrix off of them too. So unfortunately, it just didn't last very long on any of them, but they're in there somewhere. Um, do you think Barry B. Benson would like the Bumblebee movie? Barely. Do you think the Skywarp dramatic capture will include Ironhide Prowl, flight stands, and a spare damaged tail to remake his big moment in More Than Meets the Eye Part 2? I'm not entirely sure. Like, it could. Like, Ironhide and Prowl would actually be good candidates for that. That's actually not a bad idea. It's actually not a bad idea because Skywarp never really had any like firm attention on him in G1. He was just kind of there and kind of did like cool moment things instead of having like whole stories or episodes devoted to him. So that's actually not a bad idea for his dramatic capture. I actually like that. Favorite Pokemon region? Yours is Hoenn. Uh, I gotta be honest, like it's still gonna be Kanto. I'm just gonna be old school and just say Kanto. It's like that's just where my nostalgia lives. Now, there's other like Paldea has some like technical thing notwithstanding, I like how they handled the Paldea region. Because like I like open form, go anywhere, explore how you want Pokemon. That was fun. I liked that a lot. Now I'm gonna be looking forward to playing through it again, with Pokemon Scarlet on the Switch 2 now that everything works nicely. But yeah, that's probably the only one I can really think of. I guess Hisui also comes to mind too because I loved Legends Arceus. With Slugslinger coming out in a 2-pack, what do you think about the mold from the Pretender? Duh. What do you think about that mold for the Pretender double header? Maybe to retool to put 2 headmasters on the robot mode. Getting getting 2 headmaster slots on that torso would be exceptionally difficult. Can I see mine from here? No, I cannot. But you got to remember the engineering that goes into actually making that connection point. That's a lot wider in the torso than you're giving it credit for. I'm not sure you could fit 2 on the size of a deluxe. Yeah, you'd have to custom the head to like have 1 connection point and then 2 swiveling heads, which would be really freaky. And I'm not sure that would actually work. But correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think double header as like the inner Pretender robot actually has 2 heads. I think that's just the Pretender shell. So I don't think that's even necessary. But yeah, when you have like a 2 cockpit jet, there's only 2 in Transformers. You might as well get both of them in there, right? Are you disappointed by the prospect that the Walmart Cybertron capsule is supposedly canceled? JT Prime believes the rest of the figure has been canceled, i.e. Skywarp out of Cybertron Starscream. I have wanted an official release of the Cybertron Starscream design in Skywarp colors for 20 years now. Disappointed is not the word. My feelings on it require words that would get me demonetized. I am livid that that toy was canceled because I want it so badly. I am denied that toy every single time. Even third party canceled their Cybertron Skywarp they were going to do. Yeah, I'm never going to get to own that toy. I'm never going to get to own that toy. Thankfully, Grim Lockimus made me one. He customed one for me, and that one sits very, very happily on my shelves. But yeah, I want an official one. And I don't think it's ever happening at this point. It just always goes wrong. Now, the capsule line is canceled, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they can't do those toys. You know, they still would love to get repaints out of a Seeker mold. So that Starscream could very well come back as Skywarp eventually. It's just not going to be as part of the Walmart run. Let's see. What's the weirdest thing you have in the toy store right now? I just rewatched your old video showing off the cursed Garfield and the NSYNC dummy. We still have the NSYNC dummy. I honestly don't think anything beats that. Because it's a marionette. What it is. I'm trying to think if there's anything weirder. Like there's a box in the back that's full of like random Superman memorabilia, like an old record and like a thermos and things like that. Like that's weird stuff. Um I'm trying to think of this like if there's anything just like genuinely bizarre. Cause like generally we take in things that we think will sell in one way or another. So if we end up with something weird, like the Garfield, like the NSYNC, it's because someone sold us a big varied collection that just had some oddballs here and there in it. I don't think we've really taken in anything weirder than that since then. Mostly because I think we're just picky. Let's see. Favorite wheeljack design between Q and Pablo. I'm not huge on either, but I would take Pablo over Q. Like I'm not a fan of I'm not a fan of Dark of the Moon Q. It's an Einstein looking robot that's kind of messy in execution. Pablo, I like the more solid look to him. I like the more solid look of that wheeljack. Isn't it ironic that Jinrai, who is a combiner with another robot that became armor for him, would become armor for the next commander? Yeah, and by that logic, Star Saber should have become armor for Diatlas, but you know we didn't keep that thread going. Let's see, Do you think Magnetar would know about Ultra Heroes since he is also from space? I mean, they're fictional characters. Magnetar is also like Magnetar and the Ultras don't share a universe. Okay, don't get that crossed. Like I'm not. Magnetar is not an insert into Ultra or Kamen Rider universes. Sorry about that. Like he's not an insert. He is his own universe. He tells his own story. And like he's the only hero like him in that universe right now. So no, he doesn't know about Ultra Heroes outside of what he has learned of Tokusatsu after coming to Earth. That's what it boils down to. Is there a thing you gatekeep when it comes to Transformers? Yeah, gatekeeping. I don't think anything's sacred. I don't think anything should be like a club for somebody else. I want people to learn and discover this brand. I want people to enjoy whatever they want to enjoy about Transformers. So, no. I'm going to tell you this. Gatekeeping has never, ever helped a fandom. Ever. Now, if you want to police your fandom just to keep, like the really bad people out of it, people who are not bad because they're fans or they're fans of the wrong thing, just genuinely bad people, fine, get them out. But that's policing your fandom. That is not gatekeeping it. If someone is a fan of Transformers, I don't care if they're a fan of the Animorph series from the 90s. I don't care if they're a Beast Machines fan. I don't care if their favorite toy is G.I. Joe Megatron from Titanium. I don't care. Whatever got you in, congratulations. You're a fan. Come on in. Enjoy the snack buffet. Never gatekeep. Don't tell somebody you like the wrong thing. Get out. You're the wrong type of person for this fandom. Get out. No. Hard no. Do not gatekeep. Period. See, I wonder how big you can make a micrometer. I assume that's micromaster, for a Titan class budget. Hot Rod, where are you? Hot Rod, where are you? I mean, so they had a chance. This is technically Micromaster Hot Rod because his fin is on his legs. And yeah, he's about core class size. I like him better than the core class Hot Rod they made. But you see how big a Titan is? Okay, so look at Star Convoy, like the new Titan. About that big. Maybe a little bit bigger. Well, no, because honestly, no, I'm going to say bigger. I'm going to say bigger. Because like the engineering for a Titan Master, like for a Titan Micromaster would be incredibly simple. Incredibly simple. Do you think Hasbro Takara does a better job with tank alt modes when their turret becomes arms or is incorporated into the robot mode in other ways? It kind of depends on what you really value out of your toy. Like if you want design accuracy, if you just want it to look clean, then yeah, incorporate the arms into the body of the vehicle. Don't make it a turret because the turret is going to look weird. Like you look on 86 Megatron. I think the only thing that doesn't look great on that toy is the turret because it's being made up of the arms. But that said, making the arms the turret is usually how they figure out how to make that turret pivot left and right. And that's kind of important to people when it comes to having a tank alt mode, is that the turret actually works like a turret. It can move left and right. The barrel can move up and down like a tank. So, depends on what you're after. Personally, I prefer the vehicle mode to look nice. I don't, I'm not going, I'm not, a kid's going to want that turret to work. Me, I'm not going to sit here on my desk and just push it around. Pew, 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 pew. I'm not gonna do that once, but I'm not gonna do that so often that I'm like, yeah, I wish this turret could move. I'd rather it just look really, really clean. So that's just a preferential thing. But I don't know. I've seen it done well both ways. Like both ways, I've seen it done well and I've seen it done bad. So it all depends. If the Technobots and Terracons for Symmetry had gotten releases in G2, would you buy such a set? Even if it meant one of the limbs, Technobots would have to suffer from GPS like G2 Slingshot and First Aid. I mean, I don't think it's a necessary thing that one or two of them have gold plastic. That seems a little bit extreme. Assuming they were all fine, assuming that they were just completely normal, and all were fine, yeah, like it would really just depend on the color schemes, you know? Like Technobots, I love no matter what. G2 probably would have made all of them a different color and different, like wildly different colors, the way the aerial bots were done, so that they wouldn't look so close to each other anymore. And that would hurt what I like about Computron a little bit, but it really just depends on the color schemes. Same goes for the Terracons. If you could sum up the essence of your life with only 6 words, what would your 6 words be? Let's see. I might have to just kind of go with my motto. Fun has no age limit. Live. And that last part is really starting to get very important to me. I kind of expressed this in a previous video where we get so many toys in the shop because someone passed away or there was an emergency and someone had to let go of a lot of their stuff, and it just sat in a closet unopened for years, even decades, and they never truly enjoyed it. You know, they just kind of sat it in a closet. They just kind of stuck it in a closet under a bin, and then, you know, before they ever had a chance to really enjoy it, for whether it's to sell it off for a profit later or to break it out when they really felt like, you know, experiencing the toy or whatever, they never really got to experience what they wanted out of it. So, you know, stop waiting for, you know, like if you want to invest in the stocks, you know, don't go investing in toys. If you're going to buy a toy, buy it to enjoy it. You know, it's not to say mint in box collecting is wrong, but like not as like a majority thing, not as like my sole purpose thing. You know, so I don't know. You have, you know, just enjoy what you have, because you don't know when you're not, you don't know when you'll lose the chance to enjoy it. Since I'm new here, hi, welcome. How do you get into Transformers, TJ? I grew up with Armada, technically, found other shows to watch as a kid, and got introduced hard in 2007 with the movie. Stuck around ever since. So, for me, that was, like, I've had Transformers in my life literally for as long as I can remember. Literally that long. My dad is a car guy and has been a car guy his entire life. And he was buying me old school Transformers even when I was still too young to play with them. You know? So, like, he bought an Optimus Prime when I was a little kid. Not so I would have one to play with, because obviously I was way too young. He bought one so he could mess with it, because he was kind of a big kid. As is a big kid. Let's not get that confused. But he did it because he wanted me to be into cars, because that's back when Transformers, because the Transformers he was buying for me were still like the old school and they looked like actual cars still. I didn't care about the car part. I cared about the robot part. So he got me into robots by accident. So Transformers is always a thing me and my dad share. He really likes the modern Bay movies and has watched the original on repeat. So yeah, like that's kind of a family thing. That's like my touchstone with my dad. It's like he got me into Transformers. Is there a character or version of a character that you would love to see used in Transformers media that so far has been underutilized? Someone who you feel can be an interesting character if only someone would give them a chance. There's so many. I have a sub series of videos when I'm actually in a creative mood to actually just kind of go, here's an unused Transformer character. Here's what you need to do with them. I think one of the biggest names that comes to mind as soon as I read this is Nightbeat. Here you have Transformers Batman, the greatest detective on Cybertron. Don't use him. You don't use him. And that's really disappointing. Especially because it means the poor boy's gone without a toy for a long time. Like Thrilling 30 was the last time he got a toy, and it was a retool of a Bumblebee. It was not a good Nightbeat toy at all. Like Nightbeat deserves another round. He deserves a new toy desperately. And deserves to be used in something, because it's such a cool character that they could be utilizing here. I was going to ask about Brave, but right now I have a different hyperfixation. Have you heard of Kaiju number 8, and are you a fan? So, a friend of mine, actually Red Claw, the VTuber Red Claw, who's been on this channel, he did I guess his mod did a watch party in Discord for Kaiju number 8. And for a very rare time, I actually had the night free so I could actually sit in there and watch. And yeah, it's good. It's real good. We only got I was only around for maybe about 4 or 5 episodes worth, so I need to load up Crunchyroll and watch the rest. And I know that there's a season 2 on the way. I know the manga's just about to wrap up. I think it's wrapping up next month, close to my birthday, if I remember the dates correctly. But yeah, like, it's a really good show. It's a good show. I need to give it another round, and then I need to hope that Fortnite brings it back to the item shop. It's like now I kind of want it. Do you think Hotshot and Hot Rod could work in the same series together, or are they too similar? No, your difference is Hotshot is portrayed as a much younger character who's only starting to show signs of like leadership potential, whereas Hot Rod is an older character who's ready to take lead, but he's not quite mature enough yet to do it. And they are very similar to each other, but you could spin both of them in different ways to make them very distinct from each other. Almost in a way of almost like sibling characters where Hot Rod plays the older brother to Hot Shot. You basically make Hot Shot a kid character, like a kid Transformer, with Hot Rod just kind of being stuck with him. Yeah, like you could write it to make it work. When it comes to the headmasters, which origin do you prefer, American or Japanese? I personally prefer the Japanese origin because I find it really interesting that the headmaster's technology was a sort of environmental adaptation. Also, I have never been a huge fan of the idea of binary bonding. Yeah, I don't like the idea that there is like a fleshy humanoid inside the head of the Transformer, because it feels like one headshot or one punch to the head, and the squishy thing inside the head is dead. And you can't really fix that anymore. So yeah, I don't like binary bonding. I don't even like the idea of like when a human gets inside like the suit to actually transform into a head. I know their knees are bending the wrong way when they do it, and I would really like to not imagine that. Thank you. I'm trying not to yawn, so I'm doing a bad thing. I'm having a soda just to have a little bit of caffeine in my system, but we're switching to water after this. Also, the soda is not good for keeping the pipes clear, so I can keep speaking. Okay, better. But yeah, I definitely prefer the Japanese origin. Like, it just makes more sense to me in the long run. Yeah, and there's less question marks behind it. What happens if the human piloting you just like has a heart attack in the middle of a fight because it gets too intense, and then you're just like this dead corpse rattling around in your brain, and your body can't function anymore. It gets awkward. Which of these Decepticons would you choose to babysit your hypothetical children? Clobber, Thundercracker, Kakuryu, Animated Black Arachnia. No, no. Prime Breakdown, Knockout, Armada Starscream, and then because I can, the DJ. No. Oh my God, no. Kakuryu's like the only answer there. Cause like he loves playing with kids. Like I couldn't imagine a better babysitter in the Transformer universe. Do you think there's any chance we'll get an actual modern generations Raiden from Headmasters anytime soon, or did the MPG take that chance anyway? Yeah, and they did say that in the recent Pulse stream that no, they have no interest in doing a Raiden, so that's not surprising. Yeah, MPG really did take away that opportunity for a long time, and really Raiden, like vintage trains in the US market that really doesn't care about trains the way Japan does, that's kind of a doomed thing commercially. So no, I don't think you're ever going to see that. If they made a new Rack and Ruin toy, would repainting them into an homage to the merged Ratchet, Megatron Ratchet be viable? Oh, it's a lot of comments. So I don't think it would be viable to do that because the mashup of Megatron and Ratchet is so much more horrific in how they are combined than Rack and Ruin. Like, Rack and Ruin is either a robot with two heads or two robots who are joined at the shoulder and hip. They're one or the other, and neither represents the weird amalgamation of Megatron and Ratchet. It's as close as we'd ever get to a toy that could be made into them. But honestly, no, I don't think that would, ultimately, I don't think that would work. You'd have to do something completely fresh mold in order to represent that particular moment of horror. Do you prefer the original rank structure of the Autobots from G1? Basically, the Supreme Leader is the only Prime. Or do you like the other way the other continuities change things up? I thought Anime did an interesting job by making Magnus a Supreme Military Commander, made Prime the equivalent of a Captain or Colonel. So I kind of like what Cybertron did, where different areas of the universe all had their own primes. Or I guess Galaxy Force, and they all have their own convoys, who are supposedly equivalent. And I like to believe they are equivalent. But you're right. Like, Animated told it a little bit more interesting, but I think that is very story dependent because that was depicting an Optimus Prime who's still young and wasn't the great hero. So he still had to like earn his way up from there. So it makes sense in Animated. You have to do something different with the franchise and like drop Prime down to like middle management so that you could have someone like Ultra Magnus take full leadership of the Transformers, like it'd be like the big leader of Cybertron, etc. It works for Animated because of the storyline they created. And I liked how Animated used it. But I don't know, I like a lot of different interpretations. Like a lot of these things, it depends on how you write it. I think that's my most common answer. It depends on how you write it. But for my personal preference, I think if I had to choose, I like Optimus Prime being the big leader in charge of everything. Because I just do. I keep pointing this out. I keep forgetting to point this out. Like, always put your question first, because if you put your comment first, and like it truncates like it did right there, I might not see the question. I might skip you by accident. So That one. So try to keep the question. You should put the question first or you might miss it. Thank you, Crimson. Thank you. How viable do you think a Transformers 007 crossover would be with spring-loaded gadget gimmicks in the DB5 with the rams, machine guns, and a ballistic shield, rotary? You aren't going to get this much. You are not going to get this many gimmicks. You might get machine guns that pop out. But like, yeah, like, so given that we've done things like Knight Rider and Top Gun, I would say that, yeah, like a 007 crossover would probably be possible. The trick here is getting Aston Martin on board and getting the rights to one of their cars to actually do it. That's the more difficult part. I think they'd throw the 007 license at anyone who's willing to put some, willing to help them make a little bit of money on that franchise. But it's getting the car maker on board, because we've seen in the past with things like Porsche and Volkswagen, sometimes that's difficult. So that's your problem. That's your problem. I think as a toy itself, I think that's entirely viable. As far as viable to exist, different story. How would you imagine Splendid Yellow Convoy would differ personality-wise to Optimus Prime? It's hard to say because we don't have a whole lot of Splendid Yellow story to go with. It's really just a few pages out of one of the Japanese books. I don't want to go with like more feminine tropes here either. Like, they're a prime. They're a convoy. So I assume they still carry a lot of authority and leadership skills. Like, I don't want to, like if they might be more passive. They might be more tactical, whereas primes generally tend to be like a little bit more gung ho with like rushing into the fight. A Splendid Yellow might be more cautious or calculating. I know that one's a tricky one because like she does have a personality. Like, she has an established personality. I'm not familiar enough with it to really convey this one. And here we go. Xenot Hedgehog. Question first, then comment. I gotta put that in the rules. Do you think Muppet characters could work as Transformers? You wouldn't even have to worry about the joints getting loose because they just more accurate. Oh my god. Okay, that's funny. Okay, that's funny. I will definitely give you credit for an amusing one. Man, like, I feel like the Muppets have lost so much of their value over the last few years. It's like Disney just bought them and lost interest in them immediately. Which is, kind of what you're discussing above, ironically enough. I think as a gag Transformer, you could probably get a Kermit the Frog. I think Kermit's still popular enough and recognizable enough. If you just had a Kermit the Frog that transformed into like a Muppet looking frog, then yeah, like, it'd be funny. It'd be funny. But I think that's literally the only one you could probably get away with. Do you like when magical or supernatural elements are incorporated into Transformers? I could say it depends on how you write it, but ultimately not really. Like, I find that it's a very delicate balance when you mix the mystic with the sci-fi, and there's always going to be stuff that I think does hit that mark a little bit. Thundercats tries to hit that mark. He-Man especially. He-Man is like, that's your bread and butter, like balancing the technological and the sword and sorcery. But for Transformers, you're dealing with like giant mechanical life forms on a giant mechanical planet. When it gets magical, No, like supernatural, okay, you can explain things like Starscream's immortal spark, but magical, I no, no. I think in the setting of Transformers, everything needs to be explainable by science. And that's what magic is. Magic is science that you can't explain yet. So that's kind of where my brain lives on that one. I generally don't like it. Super modes where the robot becomes the core of a bigger robot, or super modes that consist mostly of the robot covered in armor. I tend to prefer the core of a bigger robot. I generally find that makes, especially like a more enjoyable individual robot for me. Like when they armor up, it's too many parts, it's too many things that could go wrong, and I feel like it can lead to it feeling like a little bit shoddy, a little bit floppy. So I generally prefer, like an Armada Optimus style or like a Power Master Prime style where it just becomes like a central core, and that lets you focus on making the super mode as articulated and functional as possible without having to worry about having it break down into a bunch of things and then having a core robot that all this stuff slaps onto. You know how like Siege Optimus and Magnus look a little swollen and bloated because they have to be big enough and wide enough to let the armor work and articulate when they're in the super mode. That's the kind of thing I want to avoid. See, who would win in a tag fight? Stampy and Tasmania Kid or Bugs Bunny and Taz? It's no, it's Bugs Bunny. He's going to beat them both. He will absolutely beat them both. Like, I don't even have to explain that one. Like Bugs Bunny works in like Batman logic, except he doesn't need time to prepare. He's just an improv comedian who will do whatever's funniest, and what is funniest is usually thwarting whoever is trying to kill him. He is incredibly clever, he's incredibly fast, and he has cartoon physics on his side. Stampy and Tasmania Kid have no chance whatsoever. What's your favorite movie genre outside of Transformers? I did not know Transformers was a movie genre. I'll be honest, I'm not huge on movies. I don't think I have a particular genre that I enjoy. Like I don't like suspense or horror movies. They're just suspense movies are just not my pace. Horror movies, no. But I like comedies, like I like action adventure stuff, like the Marvel movies. Most of those I really like. Animated, like animated comedies work for me. So, but I generally don't feel like I have like a type of movie or like a genre of movie that I will watch above all others. Like just kind of like movies in general that are good and pique my interest. Do you think a proper redub or relocalization of Superlink would make it at least a mid-tier show? Not that Hasbro would ever spring for that. So the voice casting in that show is solid. It's just, yeah, the director of that series just kind of didn't care. Like, there was just kind of like a job to them to hurry this out. And this is statements from the VAs who had to deal with said director. I think it would improve the quality, like the consistency of it. If they retranslated it to be a little bit more correct or a little bit more interesting. But honestly, the problem with Superlink is the pacing of the series and the overall plot just running out of things to do very quickly. So that's the bigger concern, and like redubbing or relocalizing it ain't gonna fix that. They ain't gonna fix that. So no. Ultimately, it would make it a little better, but I still think it would be bad overall. Should Transformer shows return to the Unicron trilogy, made by a Japanese studio and dubbed later? Got a lot of Unicron trilogy questions this month. I think that's going to be the title of the video. Now, it would depend on the studio you get. I feel like Hasbro and Takara are putting as little effort into financing the shows as possible. You can see with like Wild King. Like Wild King is a very basic plot. There's very little in the way of transformation animations. The animations don't even let the characters' mouths open and close. So there's issues. There's issues with this. I don't necessarily think it should return to that. I think, you know, like I think the American shows have all, for the most part, been really, really solid. You know, like Transformers Earthspark might have crashed and burned, and part of that is because season 2 had completely different writers in a different studio. That hurt it a lot. But season 1 I thought was really, really good TV and really solidly written. And you look at the other US run shows before that. You've got Prime, that was fantastic. Beast Wars, which was fantastic. You've got Cyberverse, which I didn't really give much credit to. Watched it later, thought it was great. It's actually way better than I thought it was. I even know people who like RID 2015. Honestly, if we're looking at it, I'd say the Japanese series overall are kind of worse, you know? I don't think, you know, like I like Transformers Victory, but I don't think it's as interesting or as exciting as like Bizarro World Season 2 Transformers G1, you know? Beast Wars 2nd and Neo do not hit nearly as good of a high watermark as Beast Wars does. Car Robots, RID 2001, I don't think is as, there's some good nostalgia there, but I don't think it's as a really good show per se. So honestly, no, I think we're doing fine. I think it's a matter of like Hasbro and Takara need to be willing to put the money into making sure that the show is good. But no, I really don't want it to return to Japan. It'd be interesting. It'd give it a different little bit of flavor and probably more uniqueness. But I don't think it's necessary. I think the US produced shows are batting a higher average. If you could make a Trailbreaker as a repaint of any Cybertron toy, which would you make him? I personally use Red Alert. I don't know of a mold that fits Red Alert in that entire Trailbreaker in that entire series. So fun fact about that series. Oh, what was it called? Overhaul. Overhaul was supposed to be named Trailbreaker, but they couldn't get the rights to the name. That's why we have Leo Breaker, because it was supposed to be Trailbreaker becoming Leo Breaker. So we almost had it out of that toy. I don't think that toy's good for Trailbreaker either, but I would probably make it that one just so we have like a little semblance of what was supposed to be. Do you think the animated Safeguard duo could work as the basis for Darkwing and Dreadwind? I mean, they kind of follow the same pattern, don't they? Like, if you wanted to do a Decepticon repaint of those two back then, yeah, Darkwing and Dreadwind would have been a great way of doing that. You know, that you probably could. So, but if you're talking like as a modern figure, like how we've been getting brand new animated figures in generations, the transformation, the vehicle modes are going to be way too different to make that work. It's not a bad idea to try and get those two to kind of work together, but ultimately I like that like Darkwing and Dreadwind do have different robot modes to them, and they look distinct from each other. And that's the opposite of what Safeguard's duo of Jetfire and Jetstorm try to do. They try to look similar. Darkwing and Dreadwing try to look different. And that's where I'd like it to kind of remain. What are your top 5 Kamen Rider collectible gimmicks, excluding Gaia memories? Okay, well, you've already taken out the best one. this is one of those like sit and think about a list type answers. So I'm not going to give you like an entire rundown. I'm going to give you my gut instinct and say, and I'm going to mention like lock seeds, progrise keys, and let's say Gashots. So like the three that come to my head immediately, with the exception of Gaia Memories, is those three. And then I'm not going to sit and mull over the rest in my brain trying to come up with a full 5. Do you think Studio Series A6 will do 2.0 versions of its early figures like Hot Rod or Blur? So they're definitely not doing a 2.0 of Hot Rod because they're very happy with that toy. I do think that is a really solid figure. I'd like to see it re-released with proper movie colors and no clear plastic. And they really haven't gotten much use out of that mold, so that's entirely viable. I don't think they will do it. If they do a 2.0 Blur, it's really just to retool that weird head he got. You know, but I don't know if they're necessarily going to run that one back. What's the worst voice acting performance in Transformers? Oh my god, how many voices do I have to comb through here? Transformers usually does a pretty good job of casting. So there really isn't any, like, no one's popping to mind of like, wow, that's just a really, really bad sounding character. And I'm sure it exists. I want to say one of the combiners had a voice in the Machinima series that didn't work for me. But I can't remember offhand who. I'll tell you. I'll tell you, it is in the Machinima series. It's not the worst one, but it just jumped into my mind. Bringing back Judd Nelson to play Hot Rod again was a mistake because he so does not sound like Hot Rod anymore, and he's just not there. And well, we'll continue on. We'll continue on because I'm getting to make fun of the Machinima series, and I love opportunities to do that. I'll tell you one of the ones that is the worst. That is one of the worst. It's Ron Perlman as Optimus Primal in the Machinima series because all of his dialogue is completely dead, flat, wooden, whatever descriptor I want. He sounds like he's half asleep the entire performance. So yeah, we'll go with that. That's the worst one I can remember at a moment's notice. Let's see, happy birthday month to you by the time you read this. Thank you. We're about a little more than 2 weeks away. Hope you get worked out with the Magnetar streams. So this is 4 weeks ago. If you weren't following my trials of Magnetar over on Twitch, my graphics card died. Well, it didn't die, but like it started to burn out and it wasn't performing anymore. It couldn't handle running a game and a model at the same time. So we fixed that by buying a $900 graphics card. But it all works again. Everything is running smoothly. As you've seen, I have been streaming pretty regularly as Magnetar in the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday afternoons, and then Friday nights. So yeah, we're doing good again. We're doing good again. See, so part 1 was Star Saber, Trailbreaker, Beachcomber, Inferno, Ironhide, Hot Rod. Next one's question could be real fun. For this month, it is name 4 to 6 Decepticons, excluding Megatron, Galvatron, Starscream, or Soundwave. My favorite ones, well, you left me Blitzwing. You left me my favorite one. So the ones that pop into my brain immediately are like Blitzwing, Reflector, Skywarp. Just to be fun, let's go with Deathsaurus. Let's go with Tarn, and let us go with a random pull out of the top of my head. I really want to throw something weird. I want to throw something weird in this. So what's my brain thing? It's literally just running through images. It's not pulling a name. I don't know why I pulled Double Dealer, but I pulled Double Dealer. Just flipping through my brain. Okay, well, now you got to figure out what the next one's going to be. Now you got to figure out what the next one's going to be. What's the most hilarious experience you've had playing D&D as of late? What stories can I tell that aren't going to get me demonetized? So in the current campaign of scheduled conflicts, oh my god, okay, so this is gonna get a little blue. This is gonna be more an adult joke. So we had a moment where like here's the thing. So like my wizard has been has was like a my wizard had this thing where like we have an edgelord rogue named Pain. Yes, they went as edgelord as possible with the character. But it was always fun for my more chaotic and fun-loving wizard to kind of make fun of the rogue. Um just because there's such a counterpoint to each other, which makes for a great slow burn romance. And we sat on that and slow cooked that for over a year. It's like we knew at session 0 we were going to put these two together. It was just a matter of when are the good moments, when do we actually make it there. And like some of the best come from the fact that like my character is still wisecracking and outgoing and very out there, whereas the rogue is slowly coming into their own and opening up, but they're still very reserved and they kind of get embarrassed over certain things. So they've gotten together. You know, they've gotten together. They've had relations. And we got to this one scene where we're on the top of the tallest mountain in the world, where the god Gaia sits in conference with the giants. And we get done with talking to her. She picks us up and literally hurls us across the world to our next destination as a weird form of fast travel. We can slow fall so we don't die from impact. But, you know, like, you know what? I think we need to rest for the night. Okay, so we do the glorious mansion spell, which basically just gives you a mansion to live in for the night. So all the adventurers can sleep comfortably in a little pocket dimension that's like just this lavish little setup. And Tora, my wizard, and Pain have their own room made just for them. You know, and they spend the night together. Relations are had. In the morning, Joust, our bard, who made the mansion in the first place, asked how we enjoyed our rooms and mentioned, like, you know, it mentioned like tried to make the rooms as comfortable as possible. And just to poke the rogue a little bit, my wizard chimes in with, what was the line? My wizard chimes in with, you know, the beds were comfortable, but I don't think it mattered how comfortable they were. Like between all of the fighting and getting thrown off, getting thrown off of the top of the world, no matter how comfortable the bed was, I was in pain all night. And just to hear the cacophony around me as everyone collectively went, "There goes our monetization." It's only dirty because your brain made it dirty. No, they fought a Tarrasque and then got thrown across the world. That was their evening. Yeah, he's gonna wake up sore. He was in pain. But he does it just to see Pain's reaction. But yeah, like getting to mess with pain with my character, I think, has brought a lot of hilarity to that game. I hope so anyway. I hope the audience thinks so. Do you think Grapple died at Autobot City 2005? I don't think so. So the movie was written when season 2 was still in its production stages. That's why so much of it is using season 1 characters. That's why Devastator's the only combiner you see, you know? Like, there's a little bit, you know, Blitzwing and Astro Train are in there, but you don't have Stunticons, like, you don't have later ones like Grapple and Hoist aren't in the movie. So, no, Trax isn't in there either. But some of them were supposed to be. Trax, Red Alert, they were supposed to appear in the battle, like, inside Autobot City. There was a whole scene where, like, you know how, like, when Optimus confronts Megatron, Megatron's just, like, inside a hallway? So, like, there was an entire scene where, like, Ultra Magnus rolls up, drops off a bunch of Autobots in vehicle mode, and they start having a go at Megatron and the Constructicons after Devastator gets separated. You know, and so I think there was supposed to be a few fatalities in that fight. I can't remember, but, like, that's what the storyboard showed. But no, like, none of the storyboards or scripts or anything ever had Grapple. So I think Grapple made it out. You know, he's probably just occupied with something else during season 3. If Hasbro ever decided to do Iron Man as a Transformers collaborative, technically already did multiple times, do you think they would do it as a Titan Master, Power Master, something along the lines of a Combiner War Magnus with Minimus Ambus, and though Tony built a Transformer replica as an armor, or just a Transformer that looks like Iron Man like the previous crossover figures? I don't think they go through the extra effort of adding like a Minimus or like a little Iron Man figurine to go inside whatever Iron Man toy it is. It would be cool. It'd be really cool if they thought that far ahead, but generally collaborative toys are not the characters themselves. They are Transformers that are based on the characters or vehicles they turn into. So it would be someone completely new that just happened to look like Iron Man. Let's see. Trust Last or Just Live More with one you like more. So I'm assuming you're asking which theme song I like. I don't know Trust Last. If that's from a newer Kamen Rider, keep in mind I'm way behind on Kamen Rider. I have not seen most of the new series, but Just Live More, the theme for Gaim, is peak. It's genuinely one of my favorites, so that one absolutely stays. In video games you played recently, what game mechanic gave you the most frustration? I mean, right now, since I've been playing Mario Kart World, the mechanic of the wall riding, because you have to use the jump button to wall ride. Hang on. I feel a cough from talking too long coming up. I'm trying to head it off with water. But no, like, my Mario Kart brain is designed to constantly look for places where I can drift into mini boosts. So a mechanic that requires the same button as those mini boosts does not agree with my brain. You know, so like I'm still trying to figure out wall riding. I'm still trying to figure out that. It's just frustrating when I tried any of the trials in free roam that require the wall riding, and I can't get it to work, you know, because it's not cooperating with me. It's like it's just a mechanic I can't wrap my head around. I'll figure it out eventually, but right now, like, that would be the one that's frustrating me the most. The currency grinding in Animal Crossing New Horizon. There's ways of optimizing that in New Horizons. Like, there really is. What do you think about, like, here's my advice. Join a Discord for this game, if you can still find one, or join the Reddit. There's usually, like, help people on the Reddit. Buy a bunch of turnips, and then Look for someone who's got a high selling price, carry all the turnips over to their island, sell them off. There's your money. There's your money. There's your like instantly millions of bells. What do you think about Hasbro using the 2000s era multi-packs as a basis for character rivalries in future series or films? Springer versus Ratbat, Aerobot Rival 5-pack as an example. See, that's a weird one. That's a really weird one. So, I mean, it'd be funny to see them do. I'm sure at this point, because those packs are now so old, I genuinely feel like for the comic books especially, there's absolutely room for to have some kind of writer or like producer on a show or something that went, this was the 2-pack I got for my birthday or for Christmas, and in my toy box, in my fight that I had on my bedroom floor, these were the two who always fought each other. So that's what I'm going to write into this show. That's what I'm going to write into this comic. So you never know when that's going to happen. Like that, there's always a possibility that like loosely connected characters like that end up in some kind of like full rivalry thing in fiction. Very possible. Very possible. So you never know. Could be fun. Considering how much shade GoBots gets from Transformer fans, how hilarious is it that the typical Megatron, Optimus Megatron origin mirrors the origin of Cyclone Leader 1. For context, both involve best friends who fight together for their planets until one grows power hungry and goes rogue. A lot of people don't give GoBots credit that it deserves because they think, well, the toys are cheaper, the animation in the show and the show quality wasn't as good. But GoBots has a lot of really solid qualities to it. We did a whole video about things that GoBots did that were technically better than Transformers because I'm trying to give it just a little bit of credit. What I would love to do at some point, I wouldn't mind if I could find a repository of episodes, some way of watching the series. I wouldn't mind giving GoBots a watch through and just to do like episode reviews. So like in like, I don't know, like 4 episode batches or something that wouldn't take too many videos away, just to kind of show that, yeah, like there's some good stuff here. We just didn't give it a chance because it's not Transformers. I like doing things that kind of like jab at like the G1er mentality. And that would do it. That would definitely do it. Turning into a routine for me, but I like the interactions. I like them too. That's why we do these videos. So you get to directly interact with me. Typically only my patrons can do this on my Discord. So this is everyone's chance to do it. How would you respond to people in the fandom you're in whenever there's someone who likes to stir trouble or be annoying to everyone else, such as purists, anti-childlike, departure announcers, MC syndrome, elitists, bigots, etc.? Personally, I leave the comments or the very worst, block or hide. Leaving the comments gives them authority because you are letting their voice stay there. If they're causing trouble, get rid of them. If they're causing problems for other people, get rid of them. Now, they can have a difference in opinion. You know, purists can get annoying, but for the most part, that's a difference of opinion. I don't find that most of them I find frustrating, but you know, at least we're still both Transformer fans or whatever. Same would kind of go for elitists. They get frustrating, but like I don't really feel like there's a need to punish that in some way. Now, when you get into things like the bigots or the ones who are just there to cause trouble, no, they do not deserve a voice. They do not deserve to be heard. You have every right in the world, and I am absolutely encouraging you, ban them, delete their comment, move on. Do not give them a platform by leaving their comment alone, because that, in a weird way, does empower them. You didn't do anything about it, so part of you is approving of it being there. And the only way you shut that down is if you do not allow that mindset into your comments or audience, period. You know, if it is genuinely bad people, there is no harm in blocking and deleting, because that's keeping your own stuff safe. That's keeping your community safe. So that, you know, when someone gets really bad like that, that's a big red flag. Treat it as such. See, hypothetically, Takara tells their designers to create a new Transformer who is made from a bunch of mismatched parts, but isn't a Junkion. Can you come up with anything? I want a new character who would take Impactor's shtick further. Someone who has a bunch of weird parts grafted onto them. So what you would be doing as far as a design of a toy would either be oh my god. So you would be doing either like a custom car or like either a custom car or a scrapyard car that's kind of just like cobbled together of other pieces and parts that don't really go together. Or you would be looking at was it Decotora? I want to say. Hang on. I want to double check I'm using this correctly. Yeah, Decotora. Decotora is basically a culture in Japan where they take big semi-truck vehicles and make them as flashy and gaudy as possible with a lot of custom stuff stuck on. And it's a really cool thing. It's actually kind of an interesting art form. But you'd be looking at something like that in order to do what you are saying. In my head, I've always had this idea of like some kind of junk-looking Transformer car that transforms. See, it was because we're so used to like the front or back of the Transformer becoming the chest or the legs. What if we do it the other way around, where like the side, you know, where like the right quarter panel and fender come off to become the legs, and then the arms are the other quarter panel and fender, and you base the toy around that. So it has this really weird asymmetrical design to it, and that's where you make it look kind of like scrapyard with different parts, or like, you know, like, or like how when the car is freshly repaired but it hasn't been repainted yet, so you've got things in like rust or like steel color, just bare parts along with like those parts that look like a normal car, things like that. I thought that would be cool for like a really junk looking character who wasn't necessarily a Junkion. The engineering would be a nightmare, but I think it would be, but that's the idea that's always been floating in my head. Did your hobby ever clash with anyone in your household, like your girlfriend or parents? So, the girlfriends I have had, including my current one, have always been completely fine with the toy collecting. That hobby, like the hobby thing, has never bothered them. My girlfriend at the time, right now, she's got plenty of toys of her own. She is a nerd herself, so yeah, like, do yourself a favor, get yourself someone who's get yourself someone who loves the stuff like you do. That way, it's like it's never like a clash in your relationship. As far as household goes, not really. Not really. Like, I have an aunt who did not really get it or understand it, but like now I'm paying all of my bills with this, so she kind of has to just kind of shut up and go, "Oh wait, he's actually kind of talented with what he's doing." It's kind of fun to show her up a little bit. But no, like I explained with my dad, like he got me into this, so this is all his fault. This is entirely on him. And no, my family's been generally very supportive of what I do. Like no one has ever thought, "Oh, you're too." I've never heard in my life, "You're too old," from family. I've never heard, "You're too old for toys. You know, you need to grow up." Haven't heard that. I seem to have adjusted pretty well. Would you ever make new Glyos videos or show off your collection? No. Just to kind of put a final nail in this, I'm done with Glyos. I'm completely done with Glyos. I don't want to buy anymore. I don't want to make any videos of any of them. I have a collection that is way too big, and I want to sell off most of it. A few pieces I still do really like are going to stay. Some of the ones that are more meaningful, like I have a gift from the creator of Glyos of a unreleased figure that's extraordinarily rare in the fandom, and I want to keep a hold of that. I'm looking at it right now. But for the most part, no. I'm just done with Glyos. I'm complete. I'm 99% done with Glyos because they just announced a crossover with the people who do Mystic Legions to make some incredibly good looking characters based on Glyos. They're doing a Phaeton and a Thanos, complete with all their alternate heads, and they're like the pre-orders up at Big Bad. You can go look at them right now. Go search for like Phaeton, P-H P-H-E-Y-D-E-N. Go search that, or just look at the recent new pre-orders on BBTS. They look incredible. They look absolutely incredible. So I actually do want those. But for Glyos itself, standard Glyos, just they kind of got away from what I liked about them. So I don't know. I just lost my love of it. How weird would it be if Unicron had gotten to Norrin Rad before Galactus did and made him his herald? Thank you for answering my questions, even though they sometimes make no sense. I do know Norrin Rad. I know that's the Silver Surfer. Unicron would have eaten him. To Unicron, there's absolutely nothing special about Norrin Rad that would make him go, I'm going to keep this humanoid around and make him my herald. He'd just be eaten. And you got to remember, like, he could make him a herald if he stood out enough to him, but Unicron deals in the mechanical life forms, and the ones that he would be going after, because remember, Unicron is an enemy of the Autobots and the Matrix of Leadership. Making this little tiny humanoid into a herald isn't going to work to fight them. He's gonna get eaten. That's all I'm gonna say. He's gonna get eaten. Animated Megatron canonically brews oil as a hobby. Just so weird. What hobbies can you see other TF characters picking up? I mean, some of them seem more obvious. Like, Blaster would probably make a really good streamer, because he likes to be kind of a broadcaster. He kind of likes to be like a personality. Like, I think he would work as a like video content creator or streamer. Let's see. Cosmos has nothing but hobbies because he's just by himself all the time. Like he's the one that has to take up astrology because he's looking at the stars all the time. Who else? Who would be fun? Who would be fun? I mean, there's obvious ones like Skybite's a poet. We know things like that. He canonically has a hobby. We know Rat Trap's a Waspinator part collector. I'm trying to think of like interesting ones. Like this is one of those like sit and think about it questions. This is one of those like really big sit and think about it questions. Yeah, it's like nothing's immediately coming to mind. Like I get okay, so I'll give you one. I would imagine Ironhide would be the type that like keeps a hold of old war trophies and like his old weapon collection. Like just because like I feel like he would be more historian about it, as opposed to Cup, who would probably be like trying to like as a hobby like write his memoirs and all the stories that he's told over the eons. But I don't think he'd be the type to keep souvenirs of that, like, because he's a storyteller. He doesn't need the reminders, but also I don't think he would want to be reminded. I get the feeling like Cup has seen horrors that Ironhide never encountered. Accidentally repeated, that's fine, not going to penalize that. I know you pitched one for the War for Cybertron Trilogy molds for a potential new take on Alternator's Wheeljack, but how would you feel if the Legacy United Chase mold was used instead? Not only matches closer to his original Mustang vehicle mode, but there's also cues that homage his G1 design, like the front of the car becoming the legs. So, I'm not trying to create Wheeljack. I was trying to create Alternator's Wheeljack. If I use the chase mold and I use that like flat chest, that defeats the point. Because the point is, it looks like Alternator Wheeljack with the car front pointing forward chest and the rear becoming the legs that the original one did not do. So yeah, like the choice would stay consistent. Like it would have like that, like that's as close as I'm going to come. No, the chase mold works if I'm making a new version of G1 Wheeljack. But it doesn't work if I'm making an alternator Wheeljack. Like the silhouette of the robot mode is way off. Way too far off. Let's see. What combination from various aspects would produce the worst Transformers toy ever? Think of the team of titanium, budget of Prime, and the gimmicks first, everything else later approach of most of Armada. You are not far off. You are not far off. Yeah, let's have Titanium engineer it. I wouldn't say the budget of Prime, because Prime did eventually figure their budget out and produce some really good stuff. You know, I feel like we're budgeting Transformers even more than we did then, because like we didn't have hollowed out toys back then. Not like we do now. But no, like you've pretty much created like the unholy trinity here. Like you've pretty much done it. Yeah, I can't think of anything that adds like a worse one. The only thing worse than that, the only thing that adds to that level of hell you've created is to make the Machinima crew do the cartoon for this toy line. There's where it gets even worse. But no, you've pretty much nailed it here. Thoughts on Kamen Rider Kuga? Hello, Tommaso Ciampa again. Always good to see you here. Kuga for me is a really good show, but it is hard to say. It is hard to tell people, go back and watch Kuga because Kuga's good. Because Kuga runs so much slower than other Rider shows because it's a singular hero and they slow burn his upgrades and his story because of that. And there's just not as much going on as a result. It is good. I personally need to rewatch Kuga because I was a little bit distracted. I tried to do it as like a background watch thing, but I didn't even have two monitors to do that with. So, I definitely should give it a shake again, but I do like it. I do like Kuga. It's not in my top 10, but I like Kuga. And you can safely say you're a fan, and yes, you are indeed a reason I got interested in the franchise in the first place, so thanks. I'm glad you're enjoying Kamen Rider. I really am. Geats is a good time. I need to finish Geats myself. Double's a great place to go after that. I would say if you liked Kuga, watch my favorite, Agito. If you liked Kuga, you should like Agito. And then beyond that, if you want something in a sillier mood, I would probably go with either something a little bit sillier. Go with X-Aid that has like a surprisingly dark turn. If you want to go with like surprisingly serious, but still has like little hits of humor, go with Gaim. I think Gaim is like one of the strongest stories. That's like my number 2. And then maybe if you want something upbeat and more light, Forze. So that's where I would bounce around if I was you. But really, if it looks good, try it out. Just avoid Ghost and avoid Saber. Those are like the 2 shows I cannot stomach. Those are the worst of the worst for me. Since we pretty much got a definitive version of 2001 Omega Prime from HasLab, could a more modern reimagining work? Like a more traditional Optimus that's either a Voyager or Deluxe, with a Voyager or Leader Magnus. Maybe combine them in one on a Commander or a Titan class figure. So we've kind of discussed why a Titan class would not work for a 2-pack like that, because Titans with multiple figures need to be using the same colors so the parts can share molds. Otherwise, every color requires a completely different mold. You have 2 completely different colored characters. That means a lot more molds are needed. That makes it too expensive. So, for this particular scenario, yeah, you can always do some kind of reimagining. Like for RID Omega Prime, I would absolutely expect at some point, like, to get it like a budgeted version of that design, probably as a leader class without a smaller robot in between. I would really like to do what we've done with Ultra Magnuses with RID Optimus Prime and just have like a variety of ones to pick from where like, okay, like here's one that's like Voyager sized, but it's, you know, like Voyager sized, but it's a normal size Optimus Prime, Voyager in robot mode. It's just a base Prime, but it's been heavily modified so it can just stand on its own and doesn't have like the full fire truck behind it. And then there's like a commander, and then like as a leader class, you get the full fire truck, but it doesn't have the inner robot. It doesn't have the smaller robot. It just goes straight to the super mode like the Titanium did. In my mind, you could play it the way Ultra Magnus does and kind of flip between the two of like, here's where the gimmick is done better. Here is where the figure is more solid. I wouldn't mind that at all. If Soundwave also became a gun like Megatron did, what type would he be? Would his minions turn into spring-loaded bullets that could be fired from him? You're asking about realistic gun transformers again. This is weird. I'm going to point this out. There's only 3 gun molds, and Soundwave would not have worked for any of them. And you are really underestimating the size of a bullet. Remember, these toys were designed in 1982, and these would not have the engineering required to make something as small as a bullet transform into a bird. This is not a good idea, my friend. This is really not a good idea. And we are finding ways of slipping in realistic gun transformer questions in again. I'm not going to delete it because this is a weird gray area. I said no gun Megatron questions, not gun bot questions. So this is a weird gray. And so I'll allow it this time, but we're going to amend that rule. No realistic gun question. No realistic gun transformer questions, period. This is not a good idea, by the way. Oh my God. Oh my God. Okay. Okay. If you were put in charge of a rebooted Marvel Transformers crossover collaborative line, what would your plans be for a figure of Carnage? It's funny, someone asked me my favorite Marvel villain earlier, and I have to say Carnage, and now we are here discussing Carnage again. Do I make Carnage the theme of this Q&A? Because it's weird that it's come up twice. Carnage is so difficult to come up with like an appropriate vehicle mode for. Like, what would Carnage transform into? Because like, I think the closest I would get for Carnage would probably be a helicopter. That way I could use the blades of the helicopter, the rotor, to emulate his tendrils as a robot. I think that's the best way to approach that. Not to mention, he's the type that would actually use the vehicle mode's actual blades to actually cut into his enemies. Like, he's the one sick enough to do that. So, because it's come up twice, I didn't really explain why Carnage was my favorite villain when the question was asked before. So we'll two-part this, and we'll say that this was part of the previous question. I really, one, I like the brutality of the character. I like that you've taken Venom and just basically cranked him up a notch, because Carnage doesn't share the same immunities and he doesn't have any morals that are holding him back, which is really what makes him more powerful. I think the psychology is fascinating because he's very much so. Carnage in the hands of a bad writer just makes him a mindless serial killer, whereas someone who really understands the character knows him as, you know, an agent of chaos who believes in law of the jungle, survival of the fittest type. You know, laws are holding us back. You know, whatever, you know, like, you should just be strong enough to do whatever you want to do type. And when you play that, that brings up interesting story possibilities. That's a much more interesting mindset than a lot of writers who get a hold of Carnage and go, hey, he just really likes killing people. Which is, you know, such a, like, I read Carnage on Wikipedia and this is how I'm going to write him from now on. But beyond that, I like his design. I like his power set. I like how threatening he is as a Spider-Man villain. You know, because he is absolutely someone, like, because, like, that was always the thing. Spider-Man always needed help to beat Carnage. And I liked when that was always a thing. Because, you know, the day that Spider-Man himself is strong enough to beat Carnage solo should be like a big build-up moment. You know, it's like when you're watching pro wrestling and you look at like Roman Reigns and a 3-year title reign, and you're just going like, who's going to build himself up to be strong enough to stop this? You know, and that's kind of like the thing you go with Spider-Man and Carnage. Like, you're waiting for that day where Spider-Man is strong enough to actually beat Carnage solo. You know, and like that's where that gets fun for me. See, and yeah, like, you're right. Riddler's way more nuanced than Cletus. I think that just shows like how broad my tastes are when I can appreciate Riddler for being so cunning, clever, and kind of witty, but also Carnage for just being, you know, like, unbridled chaos and violence. I like to think I have some variety to me. See, in honor of Pride Month, who would you like to see become the face of queer Transformers if we had to pick one just to appear on covers, in group shots with a G1 core cast or other gay characters from 80s inspired media? Knockout would be my pick. So, Knockout's not a bad one. Knockout's not a bad one because he's generally looked upon that way um for a good portion, you know, for like a really good portion of the series. So I'm trying to think now. Now I'm kind of at a loss of like, what is, Like Knockout works. Knockout works because even before the IDW thing canonized it, like we were already getting that vibe from Knockout. So that's not bad. However, if you want do you really want the face of the LGBT in Transformers? Do you really want the face of that to be a villain? That sends the wrong message, I feel. This is where I might point to a tailgate. This is where I might point to a chrome dome. You know, like see who else can we go for? Who else can we go for? RC in some canons, but that's not consistent. I'd rather it be like a consistent character who is always there as representation. See, this is where it gets tricky. See, that's actually where it gets really tricky. But no, Knockout, you're not completely off, but I definitely think there is. I definitely I think there's a flaw to the logic. You'll excuse me as I saw a particular question come up, and I want to make sure I get something right before I throw this out. So I gotta do a little bit of looking up here. Yeah, sorry about this pause here. And I'm only explaining it out loud because it's very likely that I'm not going to remember to edit this out. Yeah, but let me double check real quick. So the question is, who does the intro? Who does the voiceover intro for it? And yeah, I want to make sure I get his website right. So that's done by an old friend of mine named Sam Gabriel, who I need to talk to more often because he did some really good work for me here, and I would love to figure out some more stuff for him to do, like some extra voices, and maybe like redo the intros because they've been around for a long time now. You can find him at samgabrielvo.com if you want to hear more of his work, or if you want to hear his demo reel. He does really good stuff, really good work. So, oh, why did it do that? Why did it do that? There we go. There. Okay. Sorry about that. But yeah, I just wanted to make sure I got his website right, and I apologize for that like gap of silence while I double checked. Okay, time for a tad bit of a stranger one. As a big fan of your Transformers rollout video and still hoping for a continuation video, I'm curious if out of the characters you made and can remember, which do you want to see the most get art or other such thing from your fans? Speaking as an artist who likes to draw TFs. So the rollout crew did get a little bit of fan art. Someone did draw them out a little bit. Honestly, I'd be flattered with any of them. Like, I did that video a while ago. I'll be honest, it's kind of a blur in my head at the moment. I would have to rewatch that video to really refamiliarize myself with exactly what I came up with character-wise. And because I know I had like design inspirations for all of them. I know I had things in my head, but right now it's escaped me. I'd be flattered with any of them, honestly. I'm flattered anyone wants to do any kind of fan art of anything I make. So, like, have at it. If someone wants to come up with something, go wild. Let's see. Everyone asked about what would a Transformers Power Rangers crossover be, but like no one asked what would a Transformers Super Sentai crossover be like. Illegal, because I don't think Bandai would ever sign off on that. That's still difficult because like I did a whole Transformers Power Ranger crossover video. I did an entire video of how that crossover should work. And the difficulty became scaling because there's very few Transformers that are as large as a Megazord, and the ones that generally are large enough are way bigger than a Megazord, which would make those collabs be very difficult. You would have to go weird. Like you would have to go with like Mega Ranger, who's mecha, like their ship, their Megazord is canonically way bigger than the others. That's why if you got the Zap Astro Megazord, it's so much bigger than the Dino Megazord because canonically that's how big it is. That's the scaling. So you could start to work with that. That could work with a little bit, but it would be extremely difficult to make the two franchises mesh. I did as good as a job as I could with Power Rangers. I had to go AU to do it. Transformers Super Sentai would be really tricky as well. You'd have to come up with something different. And honestly, you'd have to come up with something way more human based. Like it would have to be like notable humans of the Transformers universe getting Power Ranger abilities, or Zords that were converted into Transformers. Like you'd have to start thinking in that direction. Yeah, give robot modes to individual components of any Sentai mecha of your choosing. Giving the Bokenger robot would be dope. I would love that for the Bokenger mecha, but I don't think the way they combine, I'm not sure that's even possible. Like Red Dumper. And I loved that I get the I guess Go-Go Dump. Or Go-Go Dumper. There's no way I can phrase this where it doesn't sound really juvenile and funny. The Red Ranger's vehicle forms most of the body of the Megazord in that series. So using it, like coming up with an individual robot mode for it, that seems impossible. It'd be fun to try though. Would it be a good idea if Hasbro made the Studio Series Gamer Edition Dinobot from the long-forgotten Beast Wars game on PS1? That way I get a chance to buy the Kingdom Dinobot with proper color scheme that I missed out on. If it was a proper Gamer Edition Dinobot from that game, it would be made of like 50 polygons. And it would just be super blocky and hard edges all over the toy. Yeah, like I would say just bite the bullet on a Kingdom Dinobot from Takara. That's about all I can really suggest to you because I don't think they would be. I don't think Gamer Edition's going to pull from the PS1 game that was frankly horrible. Let's see, another stupid question: 1,000 Waspinator clones versus Optimal Optimus. The Waspinator clones win. And you're doing like I know what you're doing here. You're doing like the versus gorilla meme. The Waspinator clones win because frankly, Optimal Optimus, if you really watch season 3 of Beast Wars, he's pretty weak. I'm not going to lie. He gets taken out a lot and he gets taken out very easily. One poisonous arrow, he's down. Like one good shot from Dinobot's eye laser, he's down. I think even, hang on. My brain just pulled a memory here. And now I have to go check this out now. Okay. Feral Scream Part 1. See, but. Okay. I was gonna say, um, for a second I thought Waspinator actually did take out Optimal Optimus in Feral Scream Part 1. No, there's an errant shot from Cheetor that did it. Okay. I panicked a little bit there. Panicked just a little bit there. No, 1,000 Waspinators would win. I don't care how fragile they are. Optimal Optimus is actually way weaker than we remember him being. See, I'm gonna be honest. This is a really rude thing to do. Don't be this person. If I'm unfamiliar with Micromasters, then yes, it's a hard question. Don't come at me like this. This is like rude to the point of like I genuinely want to like ban you off, especially because you're being really cheeky and jackass about it. Don't do that. Don't be that person. Don't do that. The only reason I'm not banning this right now is because it might throw off the questions that haven't loaded in yet. But this comment will not be in existence by the time you watch this video. Don't be a jerk. Just don't. Don't disrespect someone because you know more than they do about a topic. It's a really nasty thing to do. There are companies like Brick Arms and Brick Tactical that make custom accessories for Lego minifigs. Does such companies make custom accessories for action figures in general? So, I don't think there's like a company that does general action figures, but there's definitely ways that you can get new parts for your toys. Obviously, Transformers has a lot of upgrade companies like Dr. Wu and others that I can't name because I don't follow them. But you do have plenty of people that make new parts and upgrade pieces for Transformers. For everything else, you're more or less going to find 3D printing is the way to go about it. Especially if you have a resin printer, you can pretty much just make any accessory for any action figure you could possibly ask for. It's not a big deal anymore. Like it's easy to just download and tell it to print. So it's not like individual companies, like none that I could think of that are just making extra parts for stuff. There are companies that make like props, like not like new rifles and swords for your action figures, but like if you have a Marvel Legend and you want them holding a slice of pizza or a taco, there are companies that make like 1/12 scaled like miniature accessories like that. But everything else you're pretty much going to have to go to 3D printing for. If there was a Decepticon version of Autobots transform and roll out, what do you think it would be? There is one. It was given to us by Transformers Animated. It is Decepticons Transform and Rise Up, which works because most Decepticons fly as it is, but it also kind of goes with their whole like taking over vibe. And yeah, Hitch Dog nailed it. It's not used as often, but that is the rallying cry. See, it's typical for Bumblebee and Cliffjumper to share the same design body type along with other bots. However, Prime made Cliffjumper an all-new body with a wicked new car mode, completely different from Bumblebee. So, which do you prefer, matching or different designs? Also, will there ever be a bumper toy? Yeah, we got that. So, the old school in me prefers them to be similar in design, but I do like when they come up with new ideas as well. Like, again, this goes, it depends on how they're written, So, like the way they did Prime, yeah, Cliffjumper and Bumblebee being completely different bodies made a lot of sense. So I liked how Prime handled it, and it again depends on how you're writing these characters. In G1, Cliffjumper is just a short guy with a chip on his shoulder, which is kind of like a character archetype, and he's supposed to represent that, and he does. So him being small makes sense for that character. But just as Cliffjumper is this like gung-ho action hero type, that makes sense for his character in Prime. So really just depends on how you're writing the two. Involving the 13, who would be the modern day Cybertron equivalents? I'm not sure what you're describing here. If you're doing like what do you mean modern day? Because like the whole point of the 13 is they're ancient, so you wouldn't do modern day 13. And then who would be the modern day Cybertron equivalents? I don't know if that means like characters from Transformers Cybertron, or a 13 for Transformers Cybertron, or characters from the planet Cybertron. Um, I'm sorry, dude. I'm sorry. Your question isn't clear enough. I genuinely don't know what you're asking on this one. Yeah. But again, but even then, you're gonna ask me to come up with a roster of 13 characters, and we don't do that. Keep it simple. What Prime Wars original characters would you like to see redone in the recent toy lines, like Age of the Primes, for example? Mine would be the Commander Victorion. So yeah, like the fact that we haven't gotten any new Victorion toys kind of upsetting. We could, like they make a big deal out of the character. IDW uses the character in a very strong way, especially Pyra Magna. And then nothing. We get absolutely nothing. I would love to see them reused. I would love to see them back again with a new idea, especially if the man, it would be tricky. If Bruticus turns out to be compatible with some of the others, you could get away with it because but it does look like considering the leaks currently have Swindle and Brawl as Voyagers, that does kind of tell me that the legs are going to do a little bit more lifting, so I don't think they're going to have like the same exact system. But even if it's close, if there's any way of making all of these like molds compatible, so you could technically have the new molds become a new Pyra Magna, I would love to see that. I'm trying to think of other Prime Wars original characters. There's not a lot. Like, I'd love to see another Rook. Like, Rook was a really cool design. I don't know any equivalent modern Transformer that you could make into Rook. But like, I think he'd have to be a completely new mold. But I really do like that design a lot. What are your top 3 episodes of G1? Mine are Attack of the Autobots, Aerial Assault, and The Burden Hardest to Bear. That's something for a future top 10, because that's definitely something I would have to think over. It's 98 episodes. So to pick 3 as my absolute favorites, that gets tricky. And I'm trying to think offhand which ones I like the most. I think one of the ones I like, I like a lot of the early ones, honestly. I think Roll For It was really good with the the antimatter energon cubes, because there's so much going on in that episode. And it's an episode where like Megatron and Decepticons probably should have won. They just miscalculated a little bit at the end, but everything else was going their way. Divide and Conquer is really good too. Divide and Conquer is really good too, because it's an early way of showing just how important Optimus Prime is to the fight. Beyond that, I'm blanking a little bit after that, so I think I'll leave it there. I guess Call of the Primitives could be up there as well, if I'm just spitballing the top 3. That's probably not what my final list would be, but those are the three that popped in my head of like, I really like these episodes. Are you on the bandwagon for wanting a Transforming Spaceball 1 Mega Made from the movie Spaceballs? I'm on board for any official Spaceballs merch at this point. Like, that agreement between Mel Brooks and George Lucas should be null and void now that Lucas is out of the picture. So yeah, merchandising. Give me something Spaceballs. I don't think a Spaceball 1 that turns into Mega Made would technically be possible, because that's drastically different designs. Like, you don't see any of Spaceball 1 once it's become Mega Made. So that's not doable, but I would love to see it if it was possible. Yeah, absolutely. What DC Sonic character mashup do you wish the current DC Sonic crossover comic would have done? My vote goes to Black Doom becoming a Red Lantern and teaming up with I always stumble when I try to read this name. Atrocitus. There's fun ones you could do. There's fun ones you could do. I wouldn't have minded Rouge and Black Canary. And I think even like the Sonic Scream thing, if you could like move her power set over, would make sense, because that and Sonar, I think you could actually make sense of it that way. If I'm thinking of others, the other one was like, something in my head said Tangle and Plastic Man, just because she uses her tail exactly like that. That one came to mind. I was trying to think of one for Whisper too, but like I'm hard pressed to think of like all of them are like villain or anti-hero. Like the heroes that use guns are all villain or anti-hero. You know, like Red Hood's anti-hero. Like, he's a little bit mean to equate to Whisper. But they both wear masks while they fight. So like that might actually be doable now that I think about it. But yeah, like they don't, yeah, like, I can't think of a good equivalent on that one. It's a fun mashup world. Like I think they're having a lot of fun with it, especially the like the long whispered nerd argument. Who's faster, the Flash or Sonic? Yeah, you could, yeah, there's got to be a lot of them. There's got to be a lot of them. What's your favorite Weird Al song? That's very much a mood thing. I like a lot of his songs for a lot of different reasons. So I think Yoda is very high on that list. Let's see. White and Nerdy's good. What was one of the most recent ones? What was one of them after like Mandatory Laughter was like really hitting me. Like, I really like Tacky. I love the twist in Foil. That one, that's such a good twist to it. Bob, I think, is underrated. Way underrated. Like, to make an entire song that sounds like Bob Dylan and it's all in palindrome, I think is an incredibly impressive feat. Would it be possible for you to have Magnetar to possibly play Cubic Odyssey? I have to look this up now. I was the one who brought up the Bojangles restaurant to Magnetar. I'm surprised that you and your RPG group haven't tried a MC roleplay series. I'm not big on, if that's Minecraft roleplay, I'm not big on those. I'm really not. Yeah, my RPG group is a D&D group. We like D&D, we play D&D. Let me look up Cubic Odyssey really quick, just kind of get a vibe for it. Okay, I see. It looks like Space Minecraft. I'm getting a vibe of Space Minecraft from like what I'm initially seeing here. I mean, I like Minecraft, but I don't know if it's a game that I would like to play as Magnetar. I don't know. That's an iffy one. I'll look into it though, because I do like that kind of game. With Age of the Primes in full swing, do you think we'll get a new big convoy, or is he too obscure for a Western retail? Well, surprise, surprise. Rumor mill says we're getting a leader class big convoy at some point. So there you go. That didn't take long. Besides a Cybertronian vehicle, which Earth vehicle do you think fits Shockwave? It's hard because like you equate Shockwave with the laser weapon, which really doesn't exist. I don't know if I associate him with any Earth vehicle. Like I'm genuinely trying to think of something and like I'm coming up completely 100% blank. I'm coming up 100% blank. Like Shockwave is just one of those characters it's so hard to press into an Earth mode, you know? Like alternators did it because they didn't have a choice. But like, yeah, like I genuinely don't know. I genuinely don't know what would fit Shockwave. Like I would have to do a lot of research into weird vehicles to come up with something for him. You know, and then I'd end up just being like some kind of like weird helicopter or something, I think. How would you feel about a crossover between Transformers and Starship Troopers? It's a weird one. Okay. Now, what am I getting? What am I getting out of this? Do we have transforming bugs? Because I would take a few transforming bugs from that movie. I'm not huge on Starship Troopers though. Personally, I wouldn't be crazy about it, but I know some people who would be like in love with that. Who would make the best dad joke? Optimus animated or Earthspark? Oh, Earthspark by far. Earthspark by far. Like Alan Tudyk, Optimus Prime gives off very strong dad vibes. Absolutely. Do you ever put something out there just to forget about it until you're suddenly reminded of it? I'm asking for a friend by a friend of me myself, who will surely have forgotten I've asked this question by next month. Do I ever put something out there just to forget about it until you suddenly reminded of it? That's a weird one. That's a weird one. I kind of explained how I decide if it's time to move on from a transformer. I put it away and out of mind until until I'm reminded of it. But no. I don't generally like until you're suddenly reminded of it. I don't think I do that specifically. I put things away to see if I remember them or not, but I don't like put something out there just to forget about it. Who is faster, Sonic the Hedgehog or Wally West Flash? So I love the dynamic between Sonic and Flash in the DC crossovers right now, but it is Wally West Flash. Like Flash has Flash's speed that lets him time travel, that lets him move through between solid objects, things that Sonic has never been able to actually do. You know, Sonic is fast, but not in the way that the Flash is fast. I would love to think that they are the exact same speed. I would really love to think that. But in my heart of hearts, I know just by DC power creep over the decades, it's going to be Flash. Which Autobot Combiner team could support their own ongoing series? Like, yeah, I kind of agree with some of the sentiments in the comments immediately. Like, any of them probably, depending on how well you write it. I don't know if there's a combiner team that's well known enough for people to go, yeah, we'll give them an ongoing series. I think your best bet would probably be the Protectobots, not only because the vehicle variety would give you a lot to work with, but because you could write stories about them that aren't necessarily defeating Decepticons. Like, it could be them responding to major disasters. Like, maybe maybe it's caused by like, maybe they're like, there's an earthquake that's bringing some buildings down. That could have been caused by a Rumble or another Decepticon, but their focus would be in like fixing the apparent natural disaster that just hit and saving lives in the process. That brings up a different type of drama than just Autobot fight Decepticon. So I think Protectobots are your best bet there. Have you ever regretted getting a figure, even if it's an objectively good figure? For me, it's the Studio Series concept art Megatron. It's ironic. I looked at that toy. I saw it in person. I put up a message on Blue Sky. Hey, what's the general thoughts on this one? And I got a lot of middling stuff that told me I shouldn't buy it. So it's kind of reaffirming to see that other people regret buying it. Oh, there's a lot of toys I regret buying. Like, I bought the Naruto collaborative. I'm not big on Naruto, but I was way out of my way looking for figures that I didn't find, so I didn't want to go home empty-handed. It was there at GameStop. I liked the base mold, so I gave it a shot. It's a fun figure. It's a fun little figure, but I'm not thrilled with it. It's ironically the first Fox Transformer that we've ever had. Beyond that, like, for a long time, I turned the regret purchases into Plastic Addict. Like, that was my way of removing regret, was to kind of share it with you guys. And that's another thing that kind of plays to the advantage of being a YouTuber, because I can turn the regret purchases into something that was worthwhile to get, because I'm helping you guys make your decisions about buying it or not. I'll tell you, I bought the Sonic Collaborative set, and I kind of regret it. Because as much as I like Sonic, I don't really like the two toys. Wingtail especially. I really thought that toy came out very bad. And I need to review that 2-pack at some point, hopefully this weekend, because it's just not a good, it's a disappointing set. So I kind of have a regret over that. But once I make a video and warn people, hey, this is what you're getting into if you want it, then it shifts. Now it's not so much of a regret anymore. If you could make any changes to the 13 in their lore, what would you change? So, I love the idea of Optimus Prime being the 13th of the Primes if, and only if, looking for a quick visual example. I don't have one handy because I got the Star Optimus right here. I like it if and only if Star Optimus Prime is how he looked as the 13th Prime, and that him gaining the oh god, my brain's blanking on what it's called. The Zodiac. If him getting the Zodiac was him reconnecting to his divinity and becoming the 13th Prime as he originally was, I like that angle. That would actually be a very clever angle if that's how they chose to play it off. But if I could, I would ultimately change the 13th Prime to remain mysterious and not just be Optimus Prime. Not only because I don't like that it makes Optimus Prime predestined to be the great leader that he is and the great warrior that he is, I also hate that it basically makes Hot Rod pointless. Because you already have Bumblebee doing Hot Rod shtick of being like the young upstart with leadership potential and a need to prove himself too much. But like, taking away the Rodimus is the chosen one thing by making Prime a literal god amongst Transformers, I think hurts a lot. So yeah, I think the 13th Prime, I think if I make any change whatsoever, much as I like that little Star Convoy headcanon of mine, we had a headcanon discussion earlier. That is my headcanon. That's the one headcanon I have. Yeah, that would be it. That would be it. I'd rather the 13th Prime remain mysterious. You know, because I think that sets up more story potential than just, oh, it's Optimus. That new Vortex is compatible with the Superion frame. Do you bet the new Alpha, Bravo, or Blaze will be coming as a repaint remold of Vortex? So, Blaze potentially, if they do a set of Protectobots after all of this, it's very likely they'll just end up reusing that mold. We had a discussion of Victorion a few questions ago, where, yeah, like that would actually be really cool if they, you know, work that, because if it's compatible with the Superion frame, then it's also compatible with the Menasor frame, and hopefully it all kind of hinges on whether or not these toys are compatible with the Onslaught. I'm not sure that we're getting a new Alpha Bravo though. Maybe it's like a fan channel thing, but I think that one is a long shot. Blades is a lot more likely though. Have you ever realized that in Transformers 1, Megatron got the second half of his name from Badassatron? That is funny to think about. That is actually funny to think about. I think it's more likely. I think it's more likely that Megatron, that Tron is just a common suffix in Transformers. So, like, when he renames himself Megatron, he's shortening Megatronus, but he's also going with the same thing that made B-127 name himself Badassatron. It's just a common ender to a name. If you could add a sixth member to the Combaticons, who would it be? Tricky. That's what it'd be. It'd be tricky. Combaticons need a fighter jet. Combaticons need a fighter jet. Like someone who might like form a wing pack for Bruticus. Or just like transform into like a big weapon for him. I'm trying to come up with someone who would fit that wouldn't be like taking away from something else. Like Needle Nose came to mind, but he's in with the Target Masters, so I wouldn't want to use him. My brain went to Windsweeper because he adds that jet power to the Combaticons, and he is very heavily armed for a, because of his trigger con gimmick. I think that's about as close as I'm gonna get. So I don't think that's too bad of a call there. Who would win in a match in a card game tournament of sorts, whether it be your current D&D character, the elf card wizard, or Unicron Trilogy Megatron? In a card game tournament, then probably Tora. Probably because he'd use illusion magic to cheat. I think Unicron Trilogy Megatron would just as soon shoot Tora with missile barrages before anything else happens. So it's like Tora's got powerful magic, but he's a wizard, so he's still squishy. Can we get new animated Hotshot that does not have clear plastic? I wish. My Legacy Armada Hotshot's clear plastic is beginning to crumble. That's really unfortunate that Legacy toys, like, that's not very old. And yet, yeah, clear plastic. I hate this stuff. I genuinely hate it. I need to stop using it. After Age of the Primes, do you think they will still do the non-G1 stuff in the main line, like Fugitive Waspinator and Armada Red Alert? Or do you think they'll go back to just G1? I think at this point, they find there's a little bit too much interest in doing stuff outside of G1. So I think we'll be good. I think they will still be doing non-G1 stuff after Age of the Primes. I don't know what that would be, but there's still a lot of gaps to fill, a lot of characters that they have not done. We know they like to complete groups and teams, and there's a lot of groups and teams incomplete. If you look at the current rosters, I still need an RID Prowl and X-Brawn to go with a brand new Sideburn. Little unfair that we have not gotten that yet. So yeah, I think we'll still be with non-G1 stuff after this 2-year run is done. With Peter Cullen being 85 this month, oh my god. Do you think he should have a definitive final time playing Optimus Prime send-off with a role in a Transformers movie, game, or cameo, or a new TF cartoon? Or did he have a fine enough final role in RID 15, Rise of the Beast, and Fortnite, where he voiced a few audio clips? I would hate to think that like one of his last performances of Optimus Prime is in Fortnite, even for a game I like. I don't think he did a bad job in Rise of the Beast. You could definitely tell his voice is more exhausted than it used to be. I wouldn't mind like one good like send-off moment, like one just really good scene. Like we were talking about Transformers Rollout, like my little fan concepted thing. And the idea behind that series is that the big name Autobots are kind of like mythical figures who are lost, and part of the mission is to find out what happened to them. So you could absolutely treat Optimus Prime more like a mythical figure in that series. He might have been dead in that series. He might not have survived anything. And like all you get is like that last message from Optimus Prime, voiced by Peter Cullen, who's just kind of like one last speech, one last rallying cry to any Autobot who finds it, etc., and have some kind of poignant final performance for Peter. But also, I think he's deserved whatever rest that he can get at this point. The man is 85. I don't really have a need for him to come back and be Optimus again. He's given us decades of his life to be this character for us. I think it's okay to just let him walk off into the sunset as is. I don't necessarily need like one last hurrah. And to wrap us up, a question for Pride Month, which, is up, but we still celebrate the LGBTQ in this community regardless. A question for Pride Month. Do you think Knockout and Breakdown work better as a couple or just friends? Personally, I like them better as a couple. I think it just works for both of them. It definitely does better than like Breakdown. Breakdown has next to no personality, without being like Knockout's partner and all this. I think that makes, between Breakdown being so brutal and Knockout being so vain, I think the fact that they would be a couple makes both of them more nuanced and interesting. That kind of raises questions like, okay, how did that dynamic happen? How does that work on the domestic life? Things like that. Like, that gives them both something else besides, like one-note character aspects that they were presenting. And that is going to do it for this month's Q&A. There's a 3-hour session this time. Oh boy. So, if you made it this far, thank you very much for listening. Even if you're just keeping it in the background and using it as a podcast, I do appreciate you sticking around. As always, the rules are going to be posted at the top and pinned so everyone can see what's going on. And we'll be amending the rules. Because, yeah, there's some gray areas we need to clear up. So, thank you everyone for watching. I will see you next time. Hello everyone, I am Astral Agent Magnetar, a Tokusatsu VTuber, and I am streaming 4 times a week over on Twitch, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday afternoons, and a special late night one on late Friday/early Saturday. So come watch, come hang out, and let's make an impact together.